Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Today is Tuesday, February 26th, 2019, and this is the regular meeting of the Rhinebeck Central School District Board of Education. I'd like to call this meeting to order. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 22nd, 2019 regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, changes, amendments? No? All those in favor? That's unanimous, with the exception of Savalainen and Rosenthal. That motion passes. We have an opportunity for public comment. Would anyone from the public like to comment? Come on, guys. I know you have something to say. No? Kathy?
This is the,
Come on up.
okay. My name is Kathy Dobson. I'm at 7 Chestnut Street. I have a kindergartner. And I emailed a few of you guys earlier today about the kindergarten start date thing. And I was wondering, I think Steve clarified a few things for me. My concern was how would it affect the financial burden on families that are affected, I guess, that have kids from September to November birthdays, just because it means holding back some kids a year, which means adding $10,000 to $15,000 of daycare for those families that they didn't originally plan on. Steve pointed out that it's probably a voluntary policy. I think that's maybe not made clear. And I'm wondering if there's an actual policy that's stated. I mean, I know on the website that's like it states what the kindergarten start date new policy is. But is that the official policy, or is there like another written statement about like how official is it? I'm sorry. Like I don't. Maybe I need more background information. Am I being
All right,
clear?
well, this probably isn't the place to get the background information, but to answer your question quickly, there is no policy governing this.
There's a
It was
policy,
board.
okay.
There's not a policy.
Okay.
It was a board decision a couple of meetings ago to change the state date. The state date's December 1st.
Okay.
Pretty sure it's stated in the information that Brett King gave us leading up to the board's discussion and decision that for the first year, there would be some flexibility. So I would suggest that to anybody who has a concern about what you just raised, they should talk to Brett King.
So Brett is the contact person to talk to.
That's yeah. As the building principal, that's his job.
Okay, great.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? No? Okay. We now have the opportunity to hear from Mr. Boucher, the annual interscholastic athletics report.
Thank you. So I think you all have the majority of the information that we're going to go through. For this upcoming year, we always start with our NISPA update. That's the New York State Public High School Athletic Association's update. This is the first year, so for 2019-2020, our beds number is 256. We're using a new calculation formula at this point. Ideally, it's going to make us more efficient because we're going to know our number 2 years out. So previously, it used to be next year's number would have been determined by this year's 9th and 10th grade. Now, next year's number is actually determined by last year's 9th and 10th grade and 9th and 10th grade average. So this year, when we get to June, the 9th grade and 10th grade number and the 9th and 10th grade average will be added together to give us a number for 2020-2021. So we'll know, ideally, if state ed does what they're supposed to in July, what our number is for 2020-2021. In terms of the impact that it has for us, we go back to being a C school, straight across the board, with the exception of boys lacrosse, which we would be a D school. So everything else is going to be a C school. Now I have the asterisks next to football there. As you know, we do our football merger with Pine Plains. If it were straight 11-man football, we would be a C school, but they have switched to 8-man football. So there isn't a classification for 8-man football at this point. There are more schools now talking about going to 8-man football, so there could be a classification coming soon for that, in which case it would probably be a large school, small school combination. In terms of other NISPA news, we are continuing to do our hazing prevention course. We started it last winter, and we're having our teams go through the hazing prevention at the start of each season. New York State Public High School Athletic Association set up a hazing prevention course with an outside group. They've now made it free, which is great. It used to cost us $100 for the year. So it is a short half an hour conversation starter so that we're being proactive to prevent hazing incidences in interscholastic athletics. For the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, there is no increase to the dues. This is like the 4th or 5th year where they have not increased their dues, so that's always good, but that's staying flat. Going into the section and the league update, the only real changes here are changes in the dues to our Regional Office of Interscholastic Athletics. And that is a dollar figure of $752, which actually equates to 4.6%. So the total that we pay them is $16,473, but they take care of quite a bit of work in the athletic world. They take care of the assigning of officials, they take care of the paying of officials, they take care of the canceling of officials, which is huge. If they didn't do that, that would be a huge burden upon our business office, as well as someone to make sure which official's showing up, when they're showing up, along those lines. In terms of Section 9, there is no increase to the dues again. Those dues have stayed flat for 4 years at this point. So that is another good thing in the budget years. In terms of our interscholastic athletic teams this fall, we had a successful fall, and we have some members of these teams here with us this evening. We had division champions for our boys and girls soccer team. They went down to Wallkill and won the conference championships. And then the boys went on and won the Section 9 Class B championship as well. They did fall to Briarcliff in that first round of the regional tournament. It was a great game. For state competition, we had one of our swimmers managed to advance to the state tournament up in Ithaca. Maya Vitale went up for the 100 backstroke and the 200 IM. She placed 30th in the 100 backstroke and 37th in the 200 IM. Nice showing by Maya. Our fall teams were also busy in the classroom. 48 of our athletes that are on varsity sports had an average above a 90, so they qualify for the All-MHAL academic team, and they also received the New York State Scholar Athlete Award. When we look at our teams, so 75% of the team members had to have a cumulative average of 90 or above in order to qualify for this award. Our boys cross country, our girls cross country, field hockey, golf, boys soccer, girls and girls swimming all received that award this year, which is great. All of those individuals are recognized at our Varsity Sport Recognition Night, which this year is on Wednesday, June 12th. It starts at 7 p.m. in the auditorium, and this is your formal invitation to that event. As was mentioned at I believe it was a communications committee meeting, we started with the NFHS network, and we finally got online with them. I think it was the second or third week in January, and we were able to live stream modified JV and varsity basketball games. And I think I included in there some of the data from those games. So I'm able to find out how many people were watching these games. Now, when you look at where we started, not a lot of people knew about it. We weren't really publicizing it. I wanted to make sure things were going to work. Once we started publicizing it, now we're starting to see that people are actually watching our contests online. And then they're also watching them on demand later. I think this is a great thing for not only our community, but I think it's a great thing for our athletes. When I speak about our community, I know that there are parents that sometimes can't make contests, but also grandparents that aren't in the area that wouldn't ever be able to see their kids play, and this is a great opportunity for them. So we started off in the gym, which was very easy. We're going to see how the spring looks, how our Wi-Fi is outside, what a baseball game or say a track meet might look like with one camera from afar. I've been watching some other schools and seeing how they're doing it to see what we can come up with. I think it'll be fun and it'll be exciting. I know from talking to some of the kids, they were excited because some of our sports, such as swimming or crew, that a lot of kids don't get to go to, this will give them an opportunity to be seen, which will be nice. When we were looking at that data, I contacted the NFHS network because I said, all right, so there were 3 price plans there. There was a $9.95 monthly subscription, a $30 season subscription and a $60 annual subscription. And I said, well, I'm looking at, 73 people watching a game. I said, where are all those subscriptions coming from? Are those Rhinebeck subscriptions? And they said at this point, we've sold 9 monthly subscriptions. This was last week when they gave me that. 9 monthly subscriptions and 1 yearly subscription. As was mentioned at the Communications Committee meeting, we receive 50% of the net profit from all of those subscriptions. The only events that require subscriptions are the live events. So if they want to watch it live, people have to pay to watch it live. They can watch it on demand for free, as long as we allow them to. We could change that if we wanted to. On demand, they'd have to wait, I think, 24 hours to be able to watch it. In order to watch it, you do have to have an account with the NFHS network, but that is free. If you want to watch the live, you have to pay. We do have the opportunity to change those prices. If we change the prices, we would get whatever over and above we charge. So that is something that maybe we would want to discuss. I know from talking with Tom and Joe, we need to, and probably sit down with the Communications Committee again, think about how we really want to roll this out into the community a little bit more, whether or not we want to add advertising in any way, whether or not that falls under our policies or not. It's a potential. I know that one of the things I've seen, kids are excited about it. I've had kids video. Sometimes they do it even though they didn't plan on doing it. I see them and I say, hey, you want to do this? And they're like, okay. So I think that we could really roll this into our curriculum. And I was speaking with Ms. Wheeler with Rhinebeck Reality, trying to really, get kids excited. So hopefully we're going to be able to keep doing that. As we start talking about 2019, 2020, some things in the athletic world, we do have currently 3 merged programs. For the last 2 years, we've been merging modified baseball with Red Hook, and that was kind of in an effort to keep our program alive. Our modified baseball numbers were going down. We had 10 kids signed up, I believe, 2 years ago, 9 kids signed up last year, so we can't run a team with 10 or 9 kids. It's just not feasible when it comes to baseball. And Red Hook didn't have a team, and we practiced at Stone Church, so it was kind of like right in the middle of our district, and everything worked out well. This year, we haven't decided whether or not we're going to do that. At this point, before I came down, we had 11 kids signed up for modified baseball. That's a really small number when it comes to trying to count on middle school kids to show up every day. And also, when you think about the pitch counts, it becomes an issue. So Red Hook has mentioned that they would still be interested in doing that merger, which would keep our program going. I know from being in the Red Hook community that the Red Hook Rhinebeck Little Leagues have merged, and I think that was really kind of like the writing on the wall that we're seeing the baseball numbers as well as softball numbers start to go down. Football, I would recommend that we keep our football merger with Pine Plains. It has worked out great. Lacrosse, I'm not sure if you've been notified, we had to make a decision to not have boys lacrosse this year. We had one boy from Rhinebeck sign up. We have 3 kids from Pine Plains that had expressed an interest at that point, so 4, it's not going to do it. I've spoken with some of the guys here, and they said maybe if we were playing JV, that is something that we would want to do. So I can add a JV schedule. I can hand schedule that. We don't have to worry about doing that right now, so we can give this a couple of weeks and see whether or not there's interest at the JV level. As we talk about that, I would hop down to the third item there, the impact of declining enrollment. We are seeing that our enrollment's going down, and it's going to eventually have that impact on our sports. So, looking for some guidance from you as to what it is we should be doing. Should we try to keep mergers going so as to keep opportunities for kids, or should we look to start, backing off some of our programs? We could mention field hockey. So field hockey this year we had 15 kids on the roster, 13 of which were seniors. So next year we have 2 kids coming back that are juniors this year. They'll be seniors next year. I'd like to be able to see them be able to finish playing field hockey, but obviously that's not enough to make a team. In the past, Pine Plains has said that possibly they would be open to a field hockey merger, so this would give kids an opportunity to continue playing field hockey. In terms of cost, there would be very little cost to it for us because we're already running a bus to Pine Plains every day for football. So really, you know, the ball's in your court as to give us some guidance as to where we should be with regard to the enrollment dropping. In terms of, yeah.
Can I ask when it needs to be decided about field hockey, because isn't there a deadline?
Well, there is a deadline. However, you know, I think that I've got some capital that I've gained within the section that I can always spend. And I think that, you know, the stuff that happens behind the scenes always helps when we need to have that favor. By section rules, we're supposed to have fall mergers in by January 15th. We've passed that. When I look at that merger, I don't think we would get any kickback at all because we're not creating a super team. We're not creating a team that doesn't exist. There's already a schedule in place with Pine Plains, if Pine Plains is interested in having us for field hockey still. So, you know, I'm not worried about that deadline.
Ideally, when would you like to know?
Tonight.
Yes. I think by April, May, we should be all right. You know, I think we could work that. You know, I would want to be able to let our athletes know that that option is available for them. When we speak about our athletes, you know, and I've given you this, and the fall is obviously our busiest season, right, in terms of teams. When we look at our participation in the high school, 50% of our females were involved in a fall sport, 35% of our males. The entire population of the high school, 42% were involved in interscholastic athletics. When you go to the middle school, 48% of the females and 39% of the males, for an overall 44% of the middle school being involved. Obviously the fall, the busiest. Right? Ideally, I'd like to see the state kind of work that out a little bit better so we can have more participation in the winter. We do need more opportunities for our kids in the winter, but until the state figures something out, that's not going to happen. So even though the enrollment's declining, our percentages are staying about the same in terms of the kids that are involved. It's just whether or not we can support the programs that we have. Questions, comments, concerns? Yes?
I have a couple questions. So going back to the dues that we pay, that pays for all our ref fees?
It doesn't pay the ref fees. It pays for the bookkeeping of the officials. So they have a central office that assigns all of the officials. So let's say we have springtime, thunderstorm comes rolling through, you know, 2:15, we have to cancel. In the past, we would have to call all of the officials to cancel. Now we make one phone call to the regional office, we're canceled, they call all of the officials. It's all on them. They assign the officials, they reschedule the officials, then when it comes time to pay the officials, they do the bookkeeping. We have to reimburse them for that.
With the live stream?
Yes.
Is there any possibility of, you know, maybe athletes that play in college and sometimes they put together tape of playing? Is there any possibility that we would be able to use these things?
Yes. So every video, every live stream becomes a video. And then I can request that video file back, I get the video file. And what I haven't been able to play with, within the console, there's an area where you can create highlights. So they would be able to create highlights, and you know, I have this vision where we would have the highlights of the day playing in the cafeteria on those TVs, you know, so that these guys can watch what their peers have done. In addition, So right now, we're using Huddle, which is a video sharing program we use it with football and with basketball. So this integrates with Huddle, and ideally I'm going to try to expand Huddle to all of our varsity sports, which gives kids an opportunity to really get into the video, create highlights, and then colleges are looking through Huddle at the video.
And my last question, it looks like, I mean, the numbers, I was looking at the numbers for the last several years, and you're right, they're kind of steady, they kind of,
Mhm.
just like our enrollment numbers, they kind of jump around a little
Yeah.
bit. But it does seem, and it could just be me, that there is a little bit of decline in our JV. And I'm wondering if that's just a result of having more 9th and 10th graders play on varsity.
It is, and it also, we have, so over those years, when we stopped JV field hockey, there goes a number. Then we didn't have a JV softball team for a few years, so there goes a number. When we're not fielding those teams, you're looking at potentially, 10 to 15 kids out, which then could potentially be 20 to 25 kids if it were 2 teams. We don't necessarily have a lot of kids that are moving up when they shouldn't be at this point. The problem is when we don't have enough numbers, so like right now we're looking at, in terms of JV varsity baseball, we have 19 kids signed up. That's a tough number for baseball, 2 teams. Because, you ideally want 12 to 15 on a team. So we're hopeful that kids are going to sign up. Coach is having a meeting on Thursday, the preseason meeting, and he's going to try to get, people to, because, although sign up is really very easy to achieve, you tend to wait.
This wasn't part of your presentation, but can you talk a little bit about some of the difficulties with the athletic trainer and how that's going to work going forward?
Thank you. I was supposed to put that in here and I forgot. So right now our athletic training services is it's subcontracted through Millbrook Orthopedic Sports Therapy. And at this point we are kind of at their whim, and they could raise the fees beyond our tax levy cap. Right? We don't have that much control over that. At this point, we have 25 hours a week, and I believe it's $34,000 right now, and I think we're looking at maybe a $3,000 raise, if I remember correctly. They gave me a proposal for next year up to $37,000. It works out well where we have it now, and at the point we were having a hard time keeping trainers. I've been speaking with Joe and Tom about possibly looking to maybe bring it back in-house and maybe add to it so that we could get somebody that would stay. Because ideally you want somebody in the position so that the athletes become familiar with them and comfortable with them. I know that, so at the February meeting of the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, despite the fact that Section 9 voted against it, it did pass where it's in the NISPA handbook now that it's highly recommended that school districts have access to an athletic trainer. So, from our perspective, highly recommended becomes almost a mandate when it comes to, attorneys. So we've been out in the forefront. We've had a trainer long before anybody else. So I think that's something that we're going to need to look at, how we can add to their day and make their service more beneficial to our kids.
But they're increasing their fees for all the school districts and all of the offices, so we're not alone in having a higher price tag on that. Everybody's dealing with the same problem.
At this point, they're either Millbrook Orthopedic or Orthopedic Associates that are putting trainers in, and I know so Red Hook has Orthopedic Associates, and they're looking at potentially an increase to $50,000 to $60,000. Not an increase of, but an increase to. So it becomes almost, a win-win if you bring them in-house because that's where you're going to be. As we know, benefits are.
So Steve, the money aside, do we have any, because we subcontracted, do we have any ability to offer feedback about the quality of care
Yes.
and service?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if things are not necessarily going well with trainers?
Yes.
Can we switch them up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm contacted by Bill Braymiller, who's one of the owners, one of the partners, and we have conversations.
If you look at the history of this, and we've, like you said, we've been doing this for probably 15 years maybe,
22.
okay? I stand corrected. But what we've experienced is that the mostly young people who are coming out of college with the degrees and the certification and get a position, then move on to something more prestigious, more lucrative, whatever. And it's been, except for when we had somebody in-house, it's been kind of a revolving door. And obviously that's not optimal. It's better than not having a trainer at all, but it's been less a case of trainers who aren't doing a good job, we want to switch them out for somebody else, so much as they're telling us after a year or a couple of seasons, I'm leaving, see you later, and now we're having to scramble for somebody else. So it hasn't been so bad in recent years. Right. It was much more turnover 22 years ago.
And what's the protocol when they're on campus? If there are multiple games going on, you know, you see them running around in their golf cart, but if there's something happening at the field hockey field and some, you know, a game is over at the soccer field and that's where he is, how does he get notified that he needs to get to a field where he isn't?
Cell phone. The chaperones have his contact information. The coaches have his contact information. He tries to be, you know, I mean, after numerous years of doing it, you can't always predict where the injury is going to be, but you know where the high-profile ones are. You know, the ones where you're more likely to see it, and he'll spend more time in that area or where he can see what's going on.
All right, one question. The field hockey, since you were looking to make a decision on that, I know last year the kids were not interested in it, so I'm wondering if you had any conversation with these athletes, if that's even something they were interested in, you know, it's just too deep.
Of the two juniors, the one with the most experience expressed an interest last year in merging.
And the other question is, you know, talking about declining enrollment, I know when we talked about this last year, you know, kind of your philosophy was, you know, to get kids involved, you know, to provide as many programs as possible. I'm just wondering, you know, looking forward, if that's still what you think is best for a program, or if you've had any change?
I think having kids involved is a good thing. Somehow we need to get our kids more involved. And our kids are very busy. Our kids do a lot of things. But they're only in high school once. They're not going to have an opportunity to be on 3 sport teams ever again. You know, and I mean, that's something that they'll remember for the rest of their life. Personally, I'd like to be able to keep all the programs that we have. But we need them to say, yeah, we want to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Steve, before you leave, would you just address the merger issue?
Yeah.
Just so we're all on the same page. Go ahead.
The merger issue with regard to potential other mergers.
Yeah.
So our our swim coach had an email and talked about the likelihood of trying to have a merger with Red Hook, which is a logical fit. In all honesty, from the beginning, I said to Red Hook, why don't we merge for swimming? And that was kind of a selfish, because Red Hook has a really good agreement with Bard where they may not charge us for the pool. That's what I was thinking. I was like, wow, this would really work well. But the Red Hook athletic director keeps saying, I've got nobody coming to me saying they want swimming. And I know that, before we added swimming here, we had 1 or 2 kids not ever together over the course of 4 or 5 years, I want swimming, I want swimming. And it wasn't necessarily coming from the student, it was more coming from the parents. So it wasn't until we had, a mass of students that came and said, we really want to add swimming, that we added swimming. And at that point, we added swimming at 0 cost to the district, and since then, we've been able to take it on, in our general fund. When I kept asking Red Hook, do you want to merge? Do you want to merge? He kept saying, no, no, no. I mean, I couldn't twist his arm and say, yeah, you have to merge. And then the section went ahead and changed all of the rules. And all the rules were changed, oddly enough, because of swimming. So in Rondout, they had some pretty decent club swimmers, and they worked out a deal to swim with Kingston. And these club swimmers were difference makers, and they got to participate in the relays. And the next thing you know, some of the larger schools from Orange County, who I won't mention, started to lose, and they started to get a little upset by that. So they decided we need to have different rules. So what they did in terms of the merging of teams, they now have a combining of teams committee, which will recommend yes merger, no merger, and they base it upon this language right here, right? They identify sports as either a team sport or an individual sport. Team sports are a whole lot more lenient in terms of allowing a merger. So team sports are sports like baseball, basketball, field hockey, football, ice hockey, lacrosse, soccer, softball, tennis, and volleyball. They'll approve a team sport merger as long as one of the schools doesn't have enough to have a team. The problem is they identified individual sports, and they identified swimming as an individual sport. And they said that if one of the schools has enough athletes to be considered a team, then they cannot merge. And what they did was they went to the sport chairs and they said, okay, mathematically, how many swimmers would you need to be able to win a meet? And they came up with a number of 7. So they say that with 7 swimmers, you can win a meet. Therefore, if you have 7 swimmers, you can't merge. Now, that was all for Rondout and Kingston, right? So now what they were saying was they were saying that you can merge. Well, you can't merge. The kid can still swim, but they can shadow. So they're basically a team of 1 or 2 or 3, whatever, right? They're going to swim. They're going to practice with Kingston. That's fine, right? What happens is the Board of Education has to approve the other coach as the coach of record. And then the kid can come in and the kid can swim. Kid can't participate in relays, though, unless they have enough kids to be able to have a relay. And they can only swim in 2 events or 3 events. I can't remember, the high school and club in summer. And then relays on top of it. So once you hit your minimum number of events, you're out of the relays. I know that this year there was an email that came from a parent. I happened to be on the section council, so I got this email, and they were complaining about the way that their one swimmer from Rondout was treated, because in this dual meet, the coach of the home school was saying, don't worry about that kid. That kid doesn't mean anything in terms of the score. So it really made the kid feel pretty lousy about himself. And it's really not what we're looking to do with interscholastic athletics. What I can say is that the conversation has recently come up about changing the combining of teams for wrestling. They want to now consider wrestling a team sport because there's a dual championship. And there's weight classes. So as soon as this came up, I said, wait a minute, you got to be kidding me. I said, swimming is a team sport because you can win a section championship, you can win a dual meet. I said, and also if you're going to talk about weight classes, then you need to talk about the fact that swimmers
have different strokes. So somebody who is a backstroker may not be somebody who does the fly. So this is ridiculous. I have the support of a few at this point. I don't have the support of the big schools down in Orange County yet. But I think, because this has to come up for a vote, and it'll be a discussion item on March 12th, I think that we're going to be able to get the conversation flowing where the merger would be allowed. So right now, even if Red Hook wanted to merge with us, they couldn't. They could shadow, but they would have to be their own team, we would have to be our own team. In all reality, right, that would work, but it's not going to achieve the goal of allowing kids to be on a team, because you may not be able to still have the relays, you may not be able to still win the championships, which, they're worried about us creating a powerhouse. So we need that to change. We need Red Hook or anybody to say, yeah, we're interested.
Swimmers in Rhinebeck that might jump.
And so we talk about the little leagues, the kids are all these kids are swimming on NDAC. I mean, we know them. So it's just a matter of, it is a logical fit. We need them to agree to go to the dance with us first, and then we'll get the rules of the dance changed.
So are you going to talk to the athletic director in Red Hook, or are you waiting for them to approach you? Like, what's the next step?
I speak to him every day.
Is that good or bad?
For the better part of a year, I almost ended every conversation with, so what do you think about a swim merger? That was before that was before this, right? I've spoken with him already. So I'm in a unique situation, being a Red Hook parent, and I have mentioned to our swim coach, who's a Red Hook parent, look, if you really want to get this to happen, you really need to get the Red Hook students involved. That's what we're here for. And when kids start getting involved and kids start showing that they want it, there's a big difference between kids saying we want it and parents saying they want it. This afternoon, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet, I did get an email to Red Hook swimming parents, of which we're still a part of because my kids swim summer. So I don't know whether that will take any bit of steam. I hope it does. I think it would be a good thing for both of our communities. So yeah, I'll speak with him quite frequently about it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, so we have a little bit of an update on the Community Advisory Committee for Long-Range Planning.
Yeah, so I think in your packets at your table is a copy of the charge to this committee that the board approved when we established this past spring, and I just wanted to make sure you have it, even though I can't. Oh, there it is. Want to make sure you have it, just so you're reminded about what this board asked this Community Advisory Committee for Long-Range Planning to do, which was, then I'll quote from the statement, to advise the board regarding significant opportunities for innovation in our schools, as well as priority setting for the allocation of resources in the coming budget cycle and beyond. So we put out an announcement to the school community and the community beyond our own employees, and I'd say when we started, we probably had around 20 or so people, give or take, who expressed an interest in making a commitment to this committee. And we met at the very end of the school year, then again in early fall, and I think about 6 weeks or so later, and then we were supposed to have our final meeting on on a date in November 14th, I believe, and that was our first and earliest snow day in my memory, so we had to reschedule that meeting, and we had our last meeting, I think, in early January. So this committee has met 4 times. The work was facilitated by Dr. Lloyd Yeager, who also facilitated the development of our CDEP committee over the previous couple of years. He's a very skilled facilitator, and I think practically speaking, we had like a solid group of maybe 14 or 15 people who were actually coming to most, if not all, of the 4 meetings, including Steve and Laura and Diane, who were there as members of the board's long-range planning committee, and they participated. Tom was a participant, and I was there, of course. And the report that's in your packets from this most recent packet outlines the ideas that this committee, primarily members of the parent community, to be honest, although there were some very active members of the teaching staff as well, who developed some ideas regarding opportunities for innovation in our schools and ideas for the allocation of resources per the board's charge to that committee. So that's what's in your packet. I'm, at least not tonight, I was not planning on going through that page for page. You can read that for yourselves, and I'm assuming you've already read that before tonight's meeting. There's I think some very compelling ideas there that are worth the board looking at. I would also remind members of the full board, as well as anybody in the audience here tonight or who may be watching this on videotape, that these ideas are advisory in nature to the board. The board is in the process of doing their own long-range plan, and this was not to supplant the board's effort. This was to provide some community feedback to the board that they can consider as they go through their process of long-range planning. And the two, and if I'm out of line, board members will tell me, but I think the 2 biggest issues that are kind of looming over this process is declining enrollment, which we've been seeing and we anticipate continuing to see, and financial constraints vis-a-vis the New York State tax levy cap. So there's a squeeze in terms of student enrollment, and there's a squeeze in terms of financial resources. So these were ideas that were generated by this group of community stakeholders to give the board some ideas about things that they would like to see. And some of them, as if you've read through this, some of them are programs, implementation, or changes in the way we do some things that we do currently, and others are go directly to the idea of where do we spend our resources, because our resources are becoming tighter and don't look like we're going to be getting windfalls of state aid or any significant relief from the tax levy cap, at least in our lifetime. So that's what we're trying to plan around, and we're trying to come up with some way to forecast what we might want to do or have to do differently than what we're doing today, so we're not dropping some big change on our staff or our community like for next month, that we're at least able to forecast out 2 or 3 years and say, you know what, with the way things are going right now, we'd like to change some things and make better use of our resources, and we may have to do some things differently because in 3 years, we may have X fewer students that we have to provide resources to. So that's kind of where the board's at. This is an input into the board's process of long-range planning. It's not a long-range plan, it was never intended to be a long-range plan. It was intended as a process to gain input and feedback that would help the board in that process. So this is the reporting out to the full board as to some of the ideas that came up. There's a lot more work that has to be done with these ideas in terms of the number of program ideas that were generated from this group. And there's some great ideas in here, but they all have to be researched. We have to look at how we would implement these. It's not just like, oh yeah, great, let's do that tomorrow. This is going to be itself a long-range plan to operationalize any, if not, if not all. I mean, I don't see us implementing all, but there are some great ideas here that I think we should give some serious consideration to as we're moving forward over the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, feel free to chime in.
Well, just to
at any
add
point.
to that, really a big part of why we're bringing you this final compilation of the work is because we want your feedback. We want to know that the board could support any or some of these ideas, or alternatively, that's a crazy idea, we can't possibly do that, so don't even spend your time. But we do really need that feedback from all of you, so, yeah.
So, one thing that I was wondering while I was reading this report was how much the Long-Range Planning Committee of the board vetted, if that's the right word to use, these ideas or the contents of this report. It's hard for me reading it to get a sense of what would be a good idea, what would not be a good idea, what should be focused on, what should be given less focus. I don't know if the Long Range Planning Committee has engaged in that. I'd like to know what your thoughts are about that.
Well, at each of the CAC meetings, we all split up and worked with varying members of the community and the teachers, and we changed up our tables every time so that we all hit, I think, pretty much everybody that came. And there was a task at each meeting to look at innovation, to look at allocation, to surface ideas, and then find common themes across all the work groups. Mm-hmm. So I think we all were aware of and participated in conversations that are included in here. And we are all also pretty interested in figuring out how to prioritize these. So I have my personal idea, I'm sure we all do. But if we three say, yeah, well, we really like these 2, 3, 4, and you 4 say you're out of your mind, then we have to come to some sort of consensus about where we want to go.
Yeah, there was, within the committee structure, there was no, Roman Coliseum, thumbs up if you support this, thumbs down if you don't. And I think the idea was to draw out as many ideas as possible and not to be judgmental about them at that point of getting the ideas out. Mm-hmm. Certainly some of the ideas, and we've already brought some of these ideas to our building principals to have them start to think about them, mm-hmm. because for a number of them, especially on the innovation side, they may or may not be practical. Mm-hmm. And we need to know that before we cast our lot with Innovation 1, only to find out 3 months from now, we tried to see if that could fit into a master schedule, or if we could work out the staffing to support X. And I'll give you just an example, but I don't mean to hold this up as this is necessarily my number one, much less the other board members, but one of the ideas that came up in the innovation side was internships. Okay? We don't have internships currently in our school program. Some schools do, I would say most don't, but it seemed like a very interesting idea, okay? But we need to do a lot more, if that's an area that board members seem to be interested in, now we gotta see, is this practical?
Right.
How would we make this happen? When would it happen? Who would supervise it? There are more unanswered questions than this report even pretends to have already studied these. These are ideas that people have brought forth.
So that's helpful. I appreciate that. I guess that should we, board members who have not been participating in this process, be expecting to be getting some feedback from the building principals or from you, Joe, collating their feedback before we start, you know, the thumbs up, thumbs down process? Or is this all going to be, you know, us giving our our impressions and then somehow it all being sorted out? And I'm not sure what the best way to approach it is. So I have no objection to giving my opinion, but I'm not sure how valuable my opinion is without knowing more. And I think that the practicality is a really good thing to know, because why should any of us spend a lot of time thinking about how to adopt something that may not be operational?
I'll just give you my opinion. I think it needs to be both. I would like to know I know pretty much how the three board members who served on this committee think about some of these, not all. I mean, we haven't gone through and done a Roman Colosseum amongst the 4 or 5 of us, but I know which ideas have kind of resonated in the conversations and gotten these 3 board members kind of excited. Hey, yeah, that'd be something we ought to explore. I'd like to get that kind of feedback from the rest of you. Yeah, that sounds like an idea. You know, it's obviously the devil's in the details, but at least to give us a sense as to whether there is general board interest. I'll just say interest. I'll stop short of support and say interest in finding out more. So I think it's got to come both ways. I think the Long Range Planning Committee has to have those conversations as well, because we probably can't do everything, at least not in the short term. Maybe over 5 years we could. So I think the feedback's got to come from the full board, who hasn't really been exposed to this information until maybe your most recent board packet, as well as the people who've been kind of inside the process up to this point, if that makes sense to you guys. But that's my thought.
Okay, thank you, that
And bring your
helps.
questions, you know, because just reading this.
Yeah,
I get it.
it's
You
a
don't
little
feel
overwhelming,
overwhelmed.
actually.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. It was great work.
Yeah.
Just wondering, Joe, you did mention one of the things that we're going to do was internships, and we have a room full of seniors. And I'm just wondering if we could just do a straw poll. If you had internships available in your senior years, that's something you would have taken advantage of. You could just raise your hand if you think that'd be something that, just curious.
No, that's helpful. And just looking at the show of hands, I would point out that what does an internship mean? Working in a particular business or occupation, you know, to learn for a week, for the amount of time between when AP exams end in May and the end of the school year in June. An internship, one for part of a day every week for an entire 40-week school. I mean, it could take a lot of different shapes and forms, and we haven't distilled what internships means practically, specifically, but it's more like a concept. Like the concept being students who have a student who has an interest in veterinary medicine gets to spend X amount of time at Rhinebeck Animal Hospital for however long that might be, learning that craft. That would be an internship that if I was going to then graduate from Rhinebeck High School and go to a community college or a four-year college and study to be a vet tech or to be a veterinarian, that would be, I think,
Yep.
very helpful or could be valuable. So I mean, there's a lot of work to get from the concept to
Yeah.
an idea, but I will tell you, I've already flowed a lot of these ideas out to our building principals and said, hey, be thinking about this. And I know they're reaching out to some other schools, and not just about internships, to say, hey, how do you guys do internships? How does this work in your school? Especially like maybe another small school district.
Right.
You know, it's one thing to do internships in an Arlington or a Wappingers, I'm not saying they do that, versus doing an internship in a small school district like Haldane or something like that. So they're already out there putting feelers out, but we need to get a sense what might the board feel excited about that we could build into a plan going forward.
Okay.
I think what's important from this document is the community members that were there, you know, the sense that I got was that they're all looking for Rhinebeck to keep expanding, keep growing, keep changing. That was important. I think the piece that is not addressed is the financial piece, and you know, we didn't get into that part, although you know, no one, many of the groups that I was at, was opposed to looking at anything. But without the facts, they can't say, yes,
Yeah.
you should do this, or you know, this is how you
Right.
pay for it. So, you know, but they weren't opposed to like researching things or, you know, bring the facts back to figure that out. So I think that's where, you know, getting your feedback now to kind of go through some of these ideas and look at it to kind of narrow some of this down or get more feedback, you know, moves the process along.
Okay.
You can't hear it in the back. Could you just paraphrase what you just said about internships? I'm sorry.
Which part? I've been talking for the last.
Paraphrase.
Diane's last part, good.
I'm
Yeah.
paraphrasing the guys in the back.
Of course you can, yes.
Asking the seniors about the internships or the last part?
I couldn't hear a word you
Any of
said.
it, okay.
The last part.
I'm sorry, I'm the loudest speaker. So what I was saying was that my impression from being at these meetings was that the community members were all in favor of continuing to grow our school, continue to innovate, continue to expand. What we didn't touch on was the financial piece and how that would happen. That nobody was against doing anything that might save district money or bring money in. We didn't, because there's not the information on how to do that. So that was generally.
Thank you.
what I was saying.
Okay.
Please.
So, just what schedule would be useful to have to get the feedback to you and put it together, and what would be the next step once you did that?
Well, I think that's a fair question. We have been meeting pretty much twice a month. So we have another meeting set up in a couple of weeks. So I think my thinking was to get whatever questions and feedback got raised by those of you who hadn't been in this process and discuss that at our next meeting. And
Okay.
I mean, the sooner the better, obviously, but it's not like, yeah, we need to know by Friday. You know, we have a little bit of time, and we know this is going to be a long range process.
Okay.
But we don't want to just put it off.
No, understood. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Sure. If it please the board, we can suspend the order here and, you know, we've got a room full of people and we don't usually. So if anybody has public comment and they'd like to come forward and make a comment about anything you've heard, about anything else you've been thinking about, speak now, forever? Okay. All right, so next up is budget.
Yes.
Okay. Speaking of financial support.
Yeah.
Good segue.
Yeah. What should we be looking at here?
Yes, that's a good question. So, first of all, let's find out what everybody needs.
Yes, while Tom gets organized, we would love to hear from you. Come on up.
I'm Madison.
And I'm Cameron. I'm the vice president of the student council at Rhinebeck. And it's, yeah.
And I'm just a class member of the senior class. But a lot of talk has been going around about pep rally, and a lot of the seniors and underclassmen and upperclassmen have all, as a majority, felt that it was fine the way it was, and we'd love to have another one because it really shows a lot of team spirit and unity between classes. And Spirit Week is just so much fun, dressing up as silly things, and then all coming into the gym on the last Friday of the Spirit Week and scream our hearts out, for support of our class.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been brought to most of the kids in our class's attention, and that's why a lot of us are here tonight, just to represent our opinion that we do really want to have another pep rally, that Dr. D, the principal, has decided that he doesn't want to have any more pep rallies as long as he's principal of our school, which is kind of frustrating to us because it kind of seems unwarranted. He's put out a few arguments that it, supports bullying between classes just because of the competition, but that's just the nature of any competition, and with that argument you could say that interscholastic sports or any kind of competition shouldn't be allowed. Could I just get some kind of declaration that all of you guys are kind of in support of the idea of a pep rally and you've never had any bad experiences? So that seems unanimous.
And then in other schools, they do senior weeks and they do multiple pep rallies in a school year. And so it just seems a little interesting, weird to us that we can't even get one, especially in our senior year, which would be our last year. And it just seems like a shame.
Yeah, so, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Is the student council not working on planning a
No, we
pep
are.
rally? You are?
Well, we're not working on planning a pep rally per se, but we are planning some type of an event that could be in replace of a pep rally that would kind of have the same effect, where the students could get excited before some kind of athletic tournament or event. But we don't really see how that could be much different from a pep rally. We're trying to plan some ways that would make the principal, Dr. Davenport, feel a little bit more comfortable with it. But we don't really see any reason for it to be something other than a pep rally that could just be a little bit adjusted or even innovated. Just because I can understand the statement that it's a little bit of an outdated idea, but to just decide out of the blue that it should be completely scrapped, I think that's a little bit extreme.
And some of his ideas, such as creating teams that are mixed class, doesn't really make sense, especially if there's freshmen and seniors in the same class. We're leaving in a couple of months. Why should the freshmen be separated with the seniors to bond when we're going to be leaving in an instant? This is the last time that our senior class is going to be in one front, in one building ever again. And that's just one example of the things that he's trying to change that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Because it's unifying your team, unifying you as a class. Because we are the class of 2019.
Exactly. Yeah. If there are any negative, any interactions between class members or of different classes, it's almost always jokingly. I know last year it did get a little bit out of hand, and we are taking a lot of steps in student council to make it a little bit more supervised and a little bit more under control, just because the seniors last year kind of did get a little bit out of hand. But I don't think it really warrants just deciding to scrap the entire idea of a pep rally, like I said. And the idea of mixing classes for teams just kind of takes the joy out of it, because when you're out there with your class members and it's like a real competition,
in your
because
colors,
you feel a bond with your class and you really want to win, and that might take a lot out of it if we're not allowed to be on the same team as our classmates.
Well, I would just like to say I appreciate your comments. Thank you for stepping up and speaking your minds. Sounds to me like if the student council is planning an event, then it hasn't been scrapped.
Right, that's fair.
So,
But it is past the day or even the month where it usually would be. Almost as long as I can remember it, it's been during basketball, either at the end or during basketball season. The basketball team has been recognized. I know it wasn't last year, but basketball's over for both teams, and no pep rally. No pep rally has been scheduled, and March is this Friday. So it's
Yeah.
definitely at the least behind.
Yeah.
all right,
and-
so I'd be out of my element if I waded into the details of such an event, but I'm just trying to observe that from what you've said tonight, that the idea isn't dead. There's no rule that says it has to happen this place or this place or this place, so make it happen. Plan a good event, and
Yeah, so.
I would, yeah, go for it.
Oh yeah, our main concern is basically at the beginning of the year, my running mate Reagan Schwab, who couldn't be here tonight, and I announced like for our campaign that we wanted to have 3 pep rallies, one for every single sports season, because that could be great. And then when we started trying to plan our first one, we even got elections moved to the year before so that we'd have more time in the beginning of the year to plan for a fall pep rally, because usually we don't start student council activities until too late to be planning for a fall pep rally, which is why they usually happen in the winter, even though Mr. Boucher was even saying earlier that fall athletics are the most popular. It's really frustrating because then we were all of a sudden out of the blue hit with the fact or the concept that we wouldn't be allowed to have an event at all, and then throughout months and months and months of talking and trying to compromise and create an event that's somewhere in between, it's really frustrating to be able to have that much taken away from us. So we just wanted to kind of show our opinion that we are trying to make a compromise, but we are frustrated that we even have to compromise because it doesn't really seem like something that is that outrageous.
I think it does sound like you guys have worked on it for a long time. I'm wondering if we're trying to get something different that's too perfect and we're getting stuck in the weeds. I'm wondering if you guys can get together with Dr. Davenport and maybe come across with a multiple-year plan to get to something where he wants to get to, but not take it out on the senior class as not being able to have it. Because what's going to happen is you're going to start getting into finals and it's going to get late in the year and it's not going to happen. And I think it would be a real shame if the senior class can't have their pep rally.
So move forward.
Oh, Diane's got a couple.
I just wanted to clarify because it sounded like you guys were saying, Dr. would say, no pep rally, you can have some other kind of event, but no pep rally, and Jody would kind of say the opposite. So just to be clear, like, has he said there won't be a pep rally?
Yeah, well, yeah, so, I mean, Joe has a pretty good understanding of it. He said no pep rally, but then one of the ideas that student council had was some kind of an event that's similar in nature to a pep rally, but not a pep rally, just because I guess Dr. Davenport at this point is just opposed with the idea of something called a pep rally at all. And so we're trying to make it as similar as we can to a pep rally, but it's really hard to get there just because he has so many issues with the nature of a pep rally. So that's what our frustration is.
And I think in addition to that is that, like Cam said, student council has been working with Dr. D for months, trying to appeal to his wishes while still preserving, what we had done and want to do. And like he said, it hasn't really made much progress. And like I said, we're running out of time for something to happen.
Yeah.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. To us.
Thanks.
Good luck. Keep at it.
Thank you.
Joe, maybe to the bottom of the pep rally issue, whatever it is.
We'll try my best.
All right.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay.
And I guess first of all, who needs,
You have a copy of our share.
Mark, you needed a set?
Is this
I have
You have
Whitney's,
Whitney's.
but I could use a new one
different
if
from
you
what
have
was
enough.
circulated?
No, just if you
What was-
got,
You didn't bring
Oh.
yours. though.
Oh, I brought mine.
I think Mark needs a complete set, because we didn't get a complete set. Diane, did you need a set?
I got it unburied.
No problem. Anybody else?
I'm good.
So what is that? That,
That's her copy.
oh, that's her copy. So
she
that's
was in the loan
this,
Right.
right? Okay.
It's up to the board. You want to give out a draft?
It's the first draft. It's gonna change. You what? Good bedtime.
Okay, no, because it keeps me awake. Depends on whose perspective you're going from there.
That's true.
All right, let's watch our
All right,
time here.
yeah,
and,
we want to do watch your time. So in front of you, you have your book, okay? And within this book, it's the same as before. You have your budget calendar. There's some things like the tax levy limit, which is in your package that you have. You put in there, the rollover budget should be in there, and then places for the first, second, and third drafts.
Where's the tax levy limit?
It should
have
be
it in this
tab.
package that
It's
you
all
gave me.
tab.
What
Should
is
be the second tab.
package?
You have it.
No, I
It's in
have a
the loose-
tab.
It's not in there.
You have it in this
Right there.
packet we were
Close
just
that.
given.
You're
Right there.
It's empty.
So.
Okay, so I don't have
When you get a chance, you can look through it. It's got BOCES, operation and maintenance, transportation. So there's a lot of backup information in there, and there's will be more. But what I want to concentrate first is on the first draft. I'm going to start from the expenditure side, and then we'll
Okay.
look at the revenue
that.
side. So I'm just going to try to hit the highlights as we go through this, because I know this is the first draft, but we have a different process this year, the rollover budget, and which is in there, and I don't remember what that even looked like, to tell you the truth. It was so long ago that was presented to the Finance Committee. And then instead of having the first draft, the first meeting in January, we did the first meeting in February, like most school districts do, but then we got snowed out. So we're here for our first time to look at it. And we're starting from a lot different place than we were in years past. So we'll go through this. Now, one thing I do want you to remember, when it comes to our salaries in here, just to let you know, Annie is 2 years' worth of increases. RTA is 3 years' worth of increases. Remember, there was no negotiated contract at the end of last budget season. So in some cases, you're seeing 2 years' worth of increases, in some cases, 3 years of increases. And when it comes to the administrators, you're seeing no increase because they don't have a contract for this year or next year. So I just want to put that in kind of perspective, so that that's where you're going to see some big percentages is in the salary. It's because they're multi-year increases. But you'll find in the employee benefits, it going down. So that's where the salaries for those raises were located in those budget years. So, but let's just get on to this one, and I'll just go through some highlights here. Just to let you know, I've gone through this a few times, and over the past couple of weeks, I found one area in which I didn't have something in budget, and it's right on the first page. And I'm going to have to add $2,000 to under the Board of Education for the superintendent's evaluation software. I had not budgeted for that.
So that's not even listed?
No,
in
it's
here.
not in there, so that will be added for the
It'll be in
next
subsequent draft.
the next-
Okay, got it.
the next draft. That's the only thing as I go through that I left out.
Okay.
But just on the first page, just to let you know, like I said before, a lot of these salary increases are multi-year increases, not single-year increases. So if you see anything in particular and you have a question, let me know. So I'm going over to the second page now. And about 2/3 of the way through, we have BOCES services under BOCES administration. We see a negative $30,000. All right, and that's been created by this year, as you see that we had a very high budget, and that was for the purchase of our new accounting software. So next year, we've now brought it down to the maintenance level, so that 1 year expense is done and over with. So we're able to take $30,000 out of there, and it may go down a little bit more as we get a little bit firmer. Down under auditing, the last two, external audit fee and internal audit fee, And last year at this time, we were doing an RFP for our external auditor, and we had new bids come in. And for next year, it's $18,700. And so what I did, that savings, I took out of the external audit and I put it into the internal audit to give us the ability of the audit committee to expand the use of or our ability to audit certain areas. As we go over on to the next page, there's on page 3, there's nothing of really any significance as far as that's concerned. It's a couple $100 here or there. On page 4, this is operation and maintenance, and there are a couple somewhat significant changes. And I may take something out of here. Once again, this is a 2-year increase. Remember the step. One thing with the custodians, I would say 3/4 of them hit their longevity this year. So that's why you're seeing a little bit more than average. I put an additional $20,000 into overtime. I'm not sure if I'm going to need it or not. And I thought we'd be needing to use it for, during the project, having to use our custodians more to be able to move classrooms as needed. I think the section that we're worried about, and that's like the window walls over there, isn't going to happen until next summer. It's going to start in the
Summer of 2020.
2020. Right, so looking towards the end of this budget season. So I don't think I'm going to need that money now, but probably will need it for the following year. We go 2/3 of the way down under BOCES services. I was able to reduce it by $12,800, and that was our internet bandwidth has come down in price, which is nice. So that was very unexpected. So it was a nice $12,000 savings there. If we go on to page number 5, up at the very top, and you'll see this a couple times, the energy performance contract. It's an EPC. It's a 17-year program, and it's done with. So this was for our boilers. So they're no longer on contract. So we took the $56,000 out of there, but we've added back in on the line below about $40,000. And that's what Sheldon believes he will need to address the boiler and any type of repairs that are needed. And just to let you know up front, this may get a little bit more expensive as we go along. As the boiler starts to age, more maintenance will need to be done with it. But right now, he feels very comfortable with the boilers and their how they're functioning. He's having a problem with a hot water heater, but that will get addressed. And then down at the very bottom, like everything in between is not humongous at all, and it's very typical. But the very bottom, special items, and that's our insurance. We were able to reduce it. Our experience has been very good, and actually we will see a decrease. So that was nice to hear. If you go over onto page number 6, and this is the start of, I don't know how many, well, we'll be paying BOCES 3 years, but if we take a look down here about 1/3 of the way through, you see administrative charges to BOCES, and that's our typical one, but right below it you see BOCES capital expenses. We owe $100,240 for the first year of the 3-year plan to pay them. So Christine, who's been helping me with this, we met with Jason, who works for Bernie Donegan's office. I know we can reduce this number. We didn't know about it until after we set the first draft done. So this number can come down, probably by about $30,000. We're still trying to figure out, we owe them the $10,000 or $100,000. Then next year we owe them $500,000. The year after we basically owe them $400,000. So it's about $1 million over the 3 years. But the mechanism to expense it over 15 years, that's still yet to be determined, because we have a couple auditors looking at this, and we're getting differing opinions about how this is handled. And I liked when we met with Jason, because the way Jason presented it, that's the way everybody should be doing it. You're going to pay them $100,000 next year, but we're only going to expense about $60,000. And so we're going to have a deduct here, because we're looking at the 15-year plan, not the 3-year plan, which is what we owe them, but we don't believe that's how it needs to be accounted for. So there's a little bit of opinion differences, so I can see this number going down a little bit. But we have to set it up as to how we deal with the borrowing, the payments to BOCES, and then how we handle that debt service. Because when we talked to one auditor, he was actually basically expensing it the 100, the 500, the 400, but then we had the 15 years of other payments. So it's just, we're hitting ourselves twice. And there's no way we would have accepted if $1 million taken out of our budget over the next first 3 years of it for tax cap purposes. So, but it looks better. That number's going to be coming down. You'll have an exact figure next time. So there's definitely at least about 30,000 there that can be taken. So that's one good thing. And as we look down through the rest of it here, Marvin added an extra $15,000 for curriculum writing. So that was so he's increased his budget from $60,000 to $75,000. He also does have his grants too. So this is not his only source for professional development. The rest of it, just at the very bottom there.
Tom,
is-
before you
Yep.
move on,
Mhm.
adding 15,000 to curriculum development, is there a particular curriculum project that Marvin has on the horizon that he's working on?
I don't know particularly.
I think he's thinking about the new standards that are
Yes,
coming down.
standards.
Yeah,
At the science standards? Or?
yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And if you see at the very bottom, that's where our principals are, and you'll see they're 0%. Their raises are budgeted for in health insurance. If we roll over to the next page, I just want to talk something real briefly. I'm not going to get into it, but you'll see you have your first 3 lines of clerical, and then you got clerical substitute. You see high school, chancellor in the middle school. All through the instructional portion of this budget, I have to break it down by building. That's the new law with ESSA and New York Transparency. I don't have to do that for operation and maintenance or the business office or anything of that nature, but anything in the 2000 series, which is instruction, needs to be broken down by building. And you can start to see, you'll start to see some more codes as they get added on. But that's the last I want to say about it, if we say that. But as you go through here, there's really nothing really of any significance on this page that really jumps out, other than Marvin did put an extra $5,000 for a consultant in there. Did you ask him specifically for what it is? No, I didn't get to that level of detail with it, so, but I'm sure he'll be able to address those questions at our work session. Getting to page 8, I just want to show a couple things. It's not really humongous, but we got to remember we've already had our retirements for the year, so a lot of that is already, I don't want to say baked into it, but that's not the right word for it, but those things have already been calculated. But basically, you're looking at the elementary K-6 level, about a 5% increase, and at the secondary level, about 2.35%, which is really good. And as you go down, you see where we're breaking it apart as far as that's concerned. And then from here on, from equipment down through the next couple of pages, these are the requests that have come from the principals. Does anything really stand out? I mean, yes, there's some increases through here. There's a couple decreases, but nothing is really significant until we get over to page number 10. I just want to give you a couple little highlights of it. Not that they're humongous things, but they're looking to do a new purchase of science books. So probably in relation to what the new standards are, there's almost a $13,000 increase to science textbooks. When we look at the next section for textbooks for CLS, you'll see a kind of significant increase, and overall it's only like $4,500 to $5,000, but in particular it's the big ideas math, the consumables. The consumables are a bit more expensive than what they do everyday math before that.
So you're talking about like workbooks, things that
Yes,
they
the
use and then
consumable workbooks, yes,
can't be
correct.
used again by another student.
Correct. They had hoped to be able to purchase a couple of years of consumables up front this year, but they just had enough money to buy the textbooks themselves. So But, so, kind of figured this is where it is and this is where it's gonna level out for Chancellor. Textbooks and BMS have gone down a little bit. And if we go on to the next page, not a huge, really huge increases. I think areas in which both of the schools were looking to do is add money back into their general supplies. And I think each of their schools have, to some degree, added supplies back to them because they've all complained over the year and they've been scrambling to move monies around to get supplies for their various programs. So they did, increase their supplies, throughout the budget there. But if we go on to the next page is where we see a pretty significant decrease. And this is the area of programs for students with disabilities. And this is where we had a number of teachers retire from. And as we see, we have the budget going down by over $100,000 in for teachers in special education. But also you can see here, having to break it down building by building, where before it used to be one code. Right below it, you'll see salaries clerical. We moved 2 people out, or 1 person out of there, sorry. We had a person in there in special ed, but in reality it was a health person. So we just moved it to health. We recoded it to health. And you'll see health go up. If we go about halfway down, you see the biggest line, which is a little over $1 million, $1.145 million, and that's tuition for our special ed students. This number is in flux, okay? And maybe is a bit conservative, just because I like to go from the top and go back. But Ms. Davison is currently going through her CSE meetings. This one really addresses the high-cost ones, meaning those who are placed outside of the district at Anderson School or the various different schools around here, Abilities First. There's more than a couple people who are in flux, meaning they're moving from out-of-state placements to in-state placements. And so it's a good thing, bring them back in and things of that nature.
But these are students who are part of the district now.
Yes.
These are not students who are
Correct.
may be coming into the
No,
district.
this is strictly who we currently have here.
Okay.
In between the tuition other and the next, not the next one, but the section below that, BOCES, which is $420,000, between these 2 codes, I have 3 unanticipated placements. Now, these placements are only like $45,000. So one person could come in and wipe that all out. But, we average on 3, we usually don't get 3 coming in. It's just, you just never know from year to year. Sometimes they move out, but more than likely they're moving in. That seems to be the way it's been lately.
Tom, on that, can you just explain where the AIS would go? Is that changed, and where English second language would go? Is that part of?
Okay, AIS is for the secondary. This is for the middle school and the high school. AIS is in 2110s. So if you went back to page number Page 8. This is your teacher salary. So your reading and math AIS people are going to be in the 2110s. Now, where we do have AIS, so all our AIS people are in 2110. But where you have a little difference, and I'm speaking with my colleagues across the county, they said, don't move it. And that is, we have special ed teachers at the elementary level who push into classrooms, who aren't strictly sitting there and just working with special ed children. They're working with all children. They may take 20% of their day and work with the special ed students in that classroom, but the other part of the day they're spent with the entire classroom, either giving academic support or just there to help out. So a person could be split, 30% special ed, 70% general ed. Mm-hmm. But my colleagues have said, no, keep them that way. That's the way we all do it. Don't try to get too fancy on us. And I've taken it to heart. Working with Christine, we've kind of taken it to heart. that there's, that we don't have to break it up and put it all over the place. That really try to keep it where it is, but break it down by building.
Okay.
Don't try to go too wild with this, because you're just gonna start pulling your hair out.
So those types of teachers are in the 2110s, or?
Yes, they're in 2110. I mean, that's where those people who are hired strictly as AIS teachers, and we got reading AIS, math AIS at all levels, at all three buildings, they're in 2110. It's the extra help that the elementary gets from their special ed staff is what's still kept in 2250. They're not going to be 2010. So part of the CLS teachers are working with AIS, but not to the same degree that you would have sitting down with an individual person. She's, I think, more of a generalist there in the classroom to help everybody out, and the special ed kids specifically. But they're not sitting there and the kids are coming to them. That we have people to do that. So they're more of a classroom help, to help in the classroom while learning is going on. And not after the fact going to them separately, like you would an AIS person.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is AIS services are not special education
They're not. They're definitely not. They may provide it to special ed students.
Yeah, that's
but-
different, yeah.
Yes. So,
Okay.
So in those two areas, in the tuition and BOCES services, that's still an area in flux. And probably for every draft, we'll see those numbers changing a little bit. Maybe not so much BOCES, but the tuition and other, yes. We go on to the next page, occupational ed, that's up a little bit. We don't have full numbers yet, so those numbers could be coming down. And I don't know when. I'll have to talk with Dr. D as to when the students who are currently sophomores and juniors are making up their mind for OCC ed. So I had it at next year's level, or last year's level.
This year's level.
Well, this year's level, you're right, this year's level, but we did add one student who was in a special OCC ed program up in Columbia County. So that got added to it. School, library and audiovisual, nothing big about it except moving them and doing building by building. No really any significant increases here.
Tom, can I
other
just
than
ask you,
salaries. Yes.
can I ask you about one item? For library and audiovisual, teacher salaries, RHS.
Yep.
So what is that 63,300 entry for?
Okay. Well, from now on, we've got to think about it. Now, with ESSA and New York Transparency, we have this library right here. It's a high school, middle school. In the past, it was just coded to, actually, I think it was coded to middle school. I don't know why, but that's the way it's been set up. But now we need to break it down and say, I got two people in here. I have the librarian and the library clerk. They're split. There's 7 grade levels in this building, 4/7 to the high school, 3/7 to the middle school. That's just how it is. So that's why you're going to see a lot of these things throughout it, like the social workers. They're just coded to the high school. Well, no, I got to break it down between both buildings.
So it's not that the amount has changed, it's just the way that you're allocating.
That's correct. So what you need to do is you need to look right below it, where you have those 3 lines. Then right below you see, okay, there's a $9,800 increase, 5.68%. That's the number you should be looking at when
Okay.
you see those type of anomalies, like no increase, 7.8%, negative 57%. Look at the grand total for that section.
Okay.
It's a lot easier to understand what's going on, or if something comes up, ask me.
Okay.
That's what I'm here for. No, actually, the first one was with the librarian. The second section was with the library clerk.
Okay.
Between buildings. Like I say, nothing really significant on that page. We turn it over, computer-assisted instruction, modest increases, mostly in the BOCES area, plus some contractual issues with additional equipment and some maintenance agreements. Attendance really just increased to the salary, a little bit to supplies, guidance. This is for each of them now. There is 20 days for the summer in these numbers, just so that you know. So there's 20 days of summer work in here. Where it goes from there, Just wanted to put it at that level where it may go from there. It's yet to be
Is
determined.
that for high school and middle
Both
school?
of them, both schools. And that's for both counselors at the high school and the counselor at the middle school. If we go on to, at the bottom there with the guidance, and then we switch it over to the next page, it's really just increases the salary overall. When we look at the next area, health services, we see a somewhat significant increase there of 67,500. We have two people added to this area that came out of other areas. One was in the special education area, who is our interpreter for hearing impaired, and the other one is a health aide that we had classified in 2110, but really she is here and only here for health purposes.
So it's recoding.
It's recoding, right, it's recoding. We're not adding anybody to this, in this whole budget, okay? There's one less teacher at the elementary level. That's the only thing that's been taken out. Nothing has been added to it. So no new positions are in here. One position has been taken out of the budget, and that's through declining enrollment at the elementary level. 3 incoming classes of kindergarten, 4 outgoing 4th grade classes. It's got one more year of that next year, and then they'll be at 3 across the board. So, reduced health services. We have fewer kids who are out at private placements, so I'm reducing the health services to other school districts by 5,000. We go over to the next page. There's really nothing of significance other than I need to break down the social workers and co-curriculars by building. And that just has to be done. The numbers won't change. It's just got to get broken down by the buildings. We go over to the next page, interscholastic athletics.
Sorry, Tom,
Yep,
on the
sure.
psychological and social work services, we have been traditionally under budgeting and running through that budget line.
Not psychology, I'll tell you which one.
Just the social worker.
Social worker. And the reason is the following, and just to give you a little background, social workers came in here, 10 years ago? Started, yeah, it's about 10 years ago. And it was a contracted service at one point. And then because of turnover all the time, we said, let's hire our own. And that's how we got them in here. But we had an offset because the people we contracted with, which was Dutchess Community College, or not Dutchess County, Office of whatever, but it was Dutchess County. We had a grant for it. We had monies coming out of a grant that I think was Marvin shot at. And so instead of using that money for the county, we did it to offset these salaries here. So in other words, the salaries for this is the only group of people in this entire budget that are not 100% in the general fund. They're about 70% in the general fund and 30% to a federal fund. So what happens at the beginning of the year, we encumber their entire salary. It's not until we get their grants. When we get the grants saying, okay, your social workers are now approved, and then we charge them out of the federal grants. And then it goes into the black. So it stays in the red for a couple months, and I think it's right about now we got word, and hopefully payroll clerk has now gotten that switch, so the February one will reflect it being in the black and not in the red anymore. But that's one thing. The social worker, there's enough money there.
Well, we haven't even looked at the revenue side of this.
Right, yeah, and well, it comes out of the special aid side, so it doesn't even hit that, so it's one of those weird things. When we go on the next page, interscholastic athletics, I put some additional money in there for a couple of things on the other expenses with fees, additional $15,000. I was glad that when Steve said tonight that most was only going to go up a few $1,000s, because earlier it was supposed to be quite a bit more. So I anticipated that, so we'll be able to scale that back a little bit. The BOCE services increased by $5,000, that's family ID, part of it. And then, of course, it's the increase for refereeing. District transportation, nothing really significant at all. If we go over on the next page, we're looking at about a 1% increase overall.
Tom,
Yeah.
back on that page, the
Yep.
field trips for course, there's 2 instances of 2 on page 44.
Wait, what? I can't hear you.
Field trips of the Under transportation.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So the,
You're looking at field trips, music, choral,
yes, and then.
first line. Yep,
And the third line, so
Yep,
what is that?
Dr. D requested field trip monies for those two programs, because they had none this year. So what they had done this year is they just did $4,000 for the entire school. That he dealt with it well. He is now coming back and wants to add in.
Is this for a new trip or is this?
He wants to return the monies that were cut out of a current year budget.
Yeah, correct. That's exactly what it is. He's restoring it back to where it was. Whether it stays there or not, that's yet to be determined, but
Yeah.
his thing, he wants to restore himself back and give the opportunities for the kids to go to the city and do those type of things that were taken out of his budget this past year. If we go on to the next page, like I say, it's about a 1% increase overall to the overall program.
Which
And
program?
the decrease is a lot on the handicap side, which is
Oh,
really
okay.
nice. The handicap, we're traveling to fewer places now, which was able to cut back on two bus runs actually, in the handicap area. So that's really where a lot of savings. Overall, I was expecting 3%, but we were able to reduce 2 special ed runs. So that was able to then net it out to about a 1% increase. Transportation for BOCES is going up. It's just, we found it more economical to go through BOCES in some instances instead of us hiring our own bus to do it. Because that way other districts can absorb some of that cost to us. Civics activities, nothing changes. Employee benefits, you're going to see quite a few decreases. You see the employee retirement system going down. The rates remain flat. Remember, this is in the previous budget. This is where a lot of the salaries for negotiations were. So that's why you're seeing a lot of negatives here. So the ERS rates remain flat, but we're able to reduce money out of that due to not having to have monies there for negotiations. The TRS rate went from, I think, 10.62 to about 8.86, yeah, so it's a very significant decrease. I'm going to take a look at this one. It might be a little too high, so I'm going to go back and look at that. Social Security, once again, it's really just reducing the amount that was in there for negotiations. The next one down, workers' comp. This is one of our good success stories. 3 years ago, this is the Dutchess County School Cooperative, which is all the school districts in Dutchess County except for Wappingers. 3-4 years ago, we were $10 million in the hole. Last year, we were $2 million to the good, and now we're $4 million to the good.
Okay.
So we were able to reduce that by $12,000. So, and we should see this for the next couple of years, hopefully. We seem to be in a really pretty good place with workers' comp. And I think it's a lot of reasons, as far as better safety training and things of that nature, to be a part of it. But, and also the big thing about last year, there was not a lot of ice and snow. So that may change this year, so we'll have to wait till the next meeting of that to see all the trips and falls on the ice. The other big area is health insurance. I have to re-look at this section completely again. I don't expect it to go any higher than what it is there. I'm hoping to go a little bit downward. But at this moment, we're still finishing up just recently with the annual negotiations, and depending where everybody falls, we're going to see a different number there with the second draft. That information we just got, so was able to reduce the union welfare benefits a little bit too, which was nice. And now let's get to the last page, because there's 2 items here, actually a couple items here that I want to discuss here. Under debt service, the first section, the last line, it says interest serial bonds 12.018 project, and we see that it's gone from $200,000 to $450,000, which is an increase of $250,000. This is for our project. This was our 3-year phase-in, so that when we get to the bonds, it's already there. It's in place. This isn't going to be a 1-year hit of all of a sudden, bam. This will also be able to reduce our principal, so we'll be able to go out with a lower cost. So that would be helpful too. To kind of help offset that, if we look right below it, and I mentioned a little bit earlier, installment purchase EPC from 2001, it's gone. We've subtracted about $130,000 for the budget from there, and about another $4,000 for interest. So that EPC is done. We got 6 more years for this last one, which was with the big project from 2007. And then as we go to interfund revenue, interfund transfers, I added a line for transfers to school lunch fund for $15,000. Typically are doing that anyways, but this time we're budgeting for it.
Yeah.
So this is a 3.2% budget-to-budget increase, a little over $1 million. So let's talk and let's go to the next part. Any questions on the expenditures?
So let me just ask a quick question about the boiler. If we had to replace that, what's the cost, and is there a way to kind of put a fund together to start replacing some of that money?
I don't know. I don't know what one will cost, but I can definitely get this on our radar to. I'll talk to Sheldon about that.
Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands?
I don't know.
Just
I'm
looking at
thinking
a sense of
it's a couple hundred
we
thousand.
should probably start.
It's a couple hundred thousand.
Is there a way to budget for putting money
You
into
can.
like a sinking
You
fund?
can.
Is that
Yeah,
going
yeah.
through?
Yeah, you can set money aside for things like that. You put them into a fund for what are called repairs,
Right.
a reserve for repairs. So there's a little, the only thing I don't like about that one, reserve for repairs, and let's say we put money in there, and then we decide to use it, you gotta put the money back in there.
Yeah.
Right away. Yeah, and that's the part that I don't like about using something like that. Is you're doing it for a specific purpose, bam. Let's say it's 200,000, I don't know if that's the case. Let's say it's 200,000, and then say, okay, we need to use it, here it is, great, there. When we took 10 years, and we got, it's over 10 years, we did 20,000, there we go. But I have to replace it within 1 year. And that's the part that is really, I don't like about that, because I wouldn't want, would I want to build it back up $20,000 a year for 10 years? Yeah, I'll do that. But to say I have to do 200,000 in 1 year? No.
That's only if you don't use it for a repair, though.
Right, correct. I mean, that you specifically put into some categories you can only use for those purposes, and that's what happened to some people. They get into a certain category, they can't get it out of there. And that's one of the hard things, So the first thing I want to look is the tax levy limit first, because this will play into the whole revenue side.
And you don't even have that
Is
copy.
that
Oh.
in under the rollover budget?
Okay, I'll look on
Is that in the binders?
No, it should have came to you in your packet.
I didn't get it
2
back.
weeks ago. You did get it back. Yours is in. Go to the, we made sure yours
That's what I'm
is.
asking.
Is it dated February 13th?
Yes, 2018, yes,
Right.
yes.
In my binder, it's in the rollover.
I got it, I
Oh,
got it.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh, okay, well, that's good. Donna threw it in there, good, good, glad she did that.
aha.
All right, so how we do this is we start with the prior year tax levy. We add our tax base growth factor, which was 0.89. That's fantastic. That means the value of new property built in Rhinebeck was almost 1% of the total assessments. That's a fantastic number. So that 0.89 was great. You add in the pilots, you're gonna subtract the pilots later, but really it's the 0.89%, and our CPI is 2%, okay? So on this one page, you're gonna see a fairly big number, $1.2 million, as you see a subtract. If we roll the page over to the next one, you see that's increased to 3.81. And that is accounting for that extra $250,000 we added to it. We had the subtraction of the building aid that came off for the EPC, but we have the additional $250,000 coming on, so that kind of nets it out. And that's how we get to a 3.4% tax levy increase. So it's basically looking at 2.89% from the cap and the tax growth, plus the net effect of our debt service. So that's where we get up to 3.4%. for our taxes. And that could change a little bit between now, but that's pretty much gonna be in the range of where we should be. So now if we go to.
I'm sorry,
Yep,
Tom.
Yep.
My tax levy increase is 2.82.
That's what mine says too.
I think that's last
You
year.
got last year's.
That's last year.
That's last year's.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's last year's.
I'm
not sharing
Well, yours also says
To be fair, it
2018.
says
It does.
February 13th,
Yes,
2018.
the original
for
one
heaven's
does say,
You've got
this
the-
one does, the one for this one.
We'll take your word for
Did
it.
not take, it still says February 13th, 2018. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I have an extra one here, and someone like an extra one, there you go.
Thank you.
So we have.
Yes. Yes, no,
I'm
we,
just gonna do a.
yep, sorry about
Is
that.
that hold true for,
No, it shouldn't hold true for anything else.
Okay.
That should be the only thing. If we take a look at the revenue side, we see that the taxes are 3.84, slightly above. And let's talk about some of the things that we've done and changed on this side. We've got a little bit more in pilot money, but what I've done here is I've added $70,000 to interest and earnings. We are earning interest now. Christine's doing a great job with investing that monies. So we're easily gonna make that $100,000, which is good to see. And as interest rates go up, it's just gonna mean that we are able to generate more income. I did increase insurance recoveries. We just haven't been meeting 25,000, so.
You decreased
I
that.
decreased it
Yeah.
by 5. Miscellaneous stays the same. It really is all around the refund of BOCES aided services, and you really don't know until the year's over what it is. If we go on the next page, we see we have state aid. We have a $12,000 increase. And basically, there's two things that factor here, is that there is a decrease to our building aid because we have an EPC come off. And we've also lost some monies when it comes to textbooks, software, and library loan because we have shrinking enrollment. The rates have not changed, so every year that number's gonna get smaller and smaller and smaller. Our BOCES aid is down too. We're doing less services with them, so we're not generating. So do less work with BOCES, you generate less aid. So I don't want to spend $20,000 just to get $10,000 back the next
No.
year. It's just not fiscally.
So how come we're up 12,448?
Because we had increases to transportation aid.
Okay.
There's a slight increase to foundation aid, and there were some other aids in there that did go up slightly, but nothing tremendous coming out of it. It's like, well, there's. And then in the other section at the very bottom, the appropriated fund balance, reduced it from an additional $100,000, and I think I need to get one more year of this to get down where I think is comfortable at about $750. But so what we have down here at the bottom, we have a revenue shortfall right now of $128,000, which is really, there's one thing I need to add in, which was about $2,000, so let's just call it kind of even about $130,000 at this time. Is the delta. There's a couple ways of being able to skin that cat a little bit, and that would be to, there's a couple areas that really have to be looked at still, and that's being the health insurance, make sure, there is some savings there, how much is yet to be determined. Special education, and as Ms. Davison goes through each of the CSEs, she updates me, especially if it's an outside placement. I think, if they're they can handle within the school district, I think, that's fine. At any time she knows it's gonna add more money, she does contact me. Some other areas of potential savings.
Health insurance, right?
Is the health insurance, yep, and OCAD. I don't know how many kids are going next year. I couldn't tell you at this moment. I have it the same as what we had the previous year. And whether upper or lower is hard to say. Because as much as enrollment is declining, it's not really declining quite yet up at the high school level. We're going to start to see some slight declines up there. It's, in 2 years is really when you're going to get 3 sections hitting the middle school. Not next year, but the year after. We have one big class. So one last thing, if you go under here, there's enrollment. which should be about the last tab right here. One of the things I tried to do this year is I color-coded it, so you can follow it along, so you can see the enrollment trends. And I pointed one out earlier this year, and it's like, okay, so let's take that yellow line. Came in with 71 kids, and if you follow that yellow line down, all right, increase, decrease, decrease, increase, increase, increase. But in the end, we started with 71, and we're looking, a couple years out, they have 72 in that class. Now let's go one more over. Let's go to the blue line, 62. Now let's go all the way to the bottom. We're looking at 84. So that's really, and if you go to the next one, it started at 69, and we're projecting to stop at 88. So as you can see, every incoming grade level is just, you don't know what's going to happen. You really don't. But as you take a look at it, though, those when you get to 21, 22, that's where we're going to start seeing the 3 sections hitting the middle school. They're at 70. It's a determination whether you want to make it 3 sections or keep it at 4. But that's a couple years down the road. So, but I just wanted to let you know that was there, and I hope that's a little bit more helpful. I'll try to color code the other ones too for the future, so it's easier to follow it along. I found it much easier to follow along.
Tom, with all the retirees, the ones that we're replacing, are they in this budget? And what number?
No, the retirees were all taken out.
Right, but the people we're gonna hire to replace the
The
ones.
replacements.
The
As soon as we're
replacements.
replacing them all,
What
they're
do
in
we
here.
assume as a salary?
Masters, step 4, family health insurance.
Which is what we've been budgeting.
So that's
For years.
what's budgeting. Yep.
Seems to be pretty
And
high.
it kind of varies, it depends upon the position. To give you an example, it's sometimes some positions, when you're trying to find the right person, sometimes you got to give an example, like our guidance counselor. I mean, that definitely came in higher than what I budgeted. It happens, but then there's sometimes where we're hiring somebody right out of college and we're getting them step 1. But then there's a step 10. So with 8 retirements here, there's probably some will be over step 4, some going to be under step 4. It's just going to be a matter of until that hiring process happens. But we really don't put any limitations in the hiring process to hire the who you think is the most qualified for this job. We don't say, we don't make any determination. Say, oh no, we're step 1, only get people out of high school. Or out of high school, out of college. Well, I know some
South
schools
Carolina.
are like that. I know some schools are like that. They want to, a lot cheaper to get high school kids to take over as teachers, wouldn't it?
They're doing that in South Carolina, they can't find enough.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so
So-
let's just get to the bottom line
Right.
here. So my read on this is, this preliminary first draft budget shows a difference of 128,775 between the tax levy limit and where we're at now, as opposed to like the mill.
Correct.
And you've mentioned at least 6 or 7 things during the presentation tonight that the numbers aren't firmed up, and you anticipate, well, I could take $20,000 out of this, I could take $30,000 out of that. So this is at least in striking distance,
Mhm. Yeah. I think
and that'll
it is.
play out over the course of the next several weeks.
But we can
And
start.
we know what our retirees are, that's a
That's
done deal,
That's
that's
done.
already built into this. There's some questions like, we still have to finish calculations on health
Health
insurance.
insurance, yeah.
So there may be some savings there, so.
We can start putting a small list of potential cuts together, just in case we don't get, $120,000 in savings. And to me, it's a matter of materials and supplies and that type of thing,
Yeah.
because based on what was added by principals and other administrators, they just need to cut back on their supplies and materials and those type of things, if we're in the case of still not at the tax cap.
Well, it might also be a good idea to put a list of the items that you called out tonight, going through this, that are potential,
Right.
Movers.
yes. And then we'll track them.
Yeah. Yeah. When would you want to develop a list of potential cuts? I mean, for when?
Well, I'm basically gonna go back to last year's
Yeah.
and really just
Start with that.
just really looking at supplies, materials, that type of thing.
No, no,
Not
no, no.
looking at
No, I'm not
people
talking about the
positions.
substance,
Oh.
I'm talking about the timing. So, this is the first draft.
Yep.
And usually we get at least 4 drafts, right?
Yeah,
So-
but we usually start earlier, we probably won't get through 4 drafts
All right, so,
this year.
so let's say 3 drafts. So
Yeah.
would you want to have that cut list for draft 2? Would you want to have that cut list for draft
Well,
3?
I think that gets into a good conversation right now, because what's our next meeting? Our next meeting is
2 weeks,
16th.
yeah.
No.
Oh, well, the
Next
budget hearing.
meeting is the work session.
Oh, right.
On that Saturday,
Work
so
session.
I don't know what we want that to look like, knowing what do we want to do for this work session? And
Well,
do
the
we-
other question is,
Do we
should
still
we
want it
move-
that day?
Sure.
We still want it that
Are we
day
gonna
too.
do that? That's 2 weeks. It's less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
less than 2 weeks.
Yes.
Well,
With
a
no
a
board
number of
meeting.
questions came up tonight that you could be asking the building principals and the administrators. Now, we don't, you asked a couple of questions and Tom speculated or said, I'm not sure why he increased that $5,000 or whatever. So, I mean, we can get that information from them at that if we hold our hearing on the 9th. Our
Work session.
Moving
Parts, yeah,
this
so
way.
at what point are we gonna know a little better about special ed and about health insurance?
Well, I mean, might not know till the end of March.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of times it hasn't
When's health
happened. till-
insurance being set? Oh, that's with the people moving.
Yes.
Well, there's 2 things. There's 2 things. It's the people moving and the rate hasn't been set yet, and that will be at the March meeting. We'll know what that is.
And when is that March meeting, beginning or end of March?
Well, I think it's at the beginning because of the break. Actually, I think it's like the first week in March versus the 3rd week in March. Because I think with the spring break this year, it's kind of in the middle of March.
No, it's in
No, it's
April.
April.
April?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the wrong month.
Yes,
Hold
you
on.
are.
Let me look.
You're looking at 2018. Living in the past. That's not a past I want to live through again.
No.
So let's stay in 2019.
I mean, a little,
We are meeting March 6th. I knew we were meeting early, and I don't know why.
Why
but
were
we're
you March
meeting-
6th?
I don't know
No,
why
no.
DHIC is,
D-
no,
D-HIC.
Oh, D-HIC is
DHIC is meeting March 6th.
We're not
it's
yet.
getting late.
So that was 2016.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a Wednesday, we're not.
So one of the things that we talked about a little bit, I don't know if it was in committee or here, was not really looking at the budget from a perspective of cuts, but from each principal managing their programs and what they want to do, and to do that, they need to do, this. And I think it's kind of the way that it's presented can have an impact on how it's perceived. Right, so I don't really want to go down another list of cuts if, I think that's kind of, going down the same road again. I'd rather see the principal say, I really want to deliver this robust program, this is what I'm changing, right? I think that is a bit better than saying, here's what I have to cut again, because we've gone down this road. I mean, last year was certainly more impactful than this year is, but, if we don't get 8 retirees next year, we're going to have a bigger gap, if all things being equal. So the sooner we can change this mentality of a cut list, I think the better off we're going to be. So I would encourage the principals to think about it more so that way for this
Well,
budget workshop.
And I guess that's why I'm leaning towards keeping the budget work session, right, that's what we're calling it, right?
Yes.
Keeping the budget work session on for March 9th, where we ask them to tell us about their programs and how their budget requests support their programs. Especially, I agree with Steve, if we don't want to get into that cut list mindset, at least at this point. I mean, if we're coming down to the end of March and we still have a $30,000 gap, just off the top of my head, then we got to say, okay, where can we peel back 30,000? Which, again, is a heck of a lot less angst than peeling back $500,000 or whatever. And so I don't think we're in that same place. I'd rather keep it positive and have them talk about their budgets and what they want to spend money on and what they want to add back into their budgets or whatever, and do that on the 9th. And we keep it positive, we keep it upbeat. We know we still have some more information that we have to collect through early through to at least the end of March, depending on when some of this stuff can happen. And then we look at the bottom line. Hopefully by that time it's down, it's out of the 3-figure range where we're talking about maybe, I don't want to even guess on a number, but it's a lot easier task at that point than start coming up with a list of cuts for March 9th. I think that may be
That seems
not
unnecessary.
where we need to go, so. And it also still gives us enough time to do stuff. If we wait until the end of March to do the budget work session, excuse me, then now we're backing up against the drop dead date. And I'd rather do it sooner, raise issues sooner, and give them and us a few more weeks to finesse whatever has to be finessed than to wait to do that to the end. That's the only reason I'm saying sooner rather than later, but I'll do whatever you guys feel most comfortable.
That makes sense.
I think it's a good year to try it, I think,
Yeah.
right?
I think it seems like a logical first step, right?
Yeah.
Rather than.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to implement a different way to go at it this year, and well, let's at least follow through and see if it works.
Okay,
Hold on.
good.
There's a couple things in here though that don't quite fit in that. You know, like if Marvin needs more training for ESSA, then something else in fee has to change. And I think there's just an increase in there, same thing with the high school field trip. If that's more important than something right now, then you have to change, but these are just increases.
Well, I'd rather talk about that stuff sooner than later. Why do we want to wait till the end of March to talk about that? I'd rather talk about it now and have them start massaging their budgets earlier than wait till the 11th hour. But again, that's just my thinking at this point.
Everybody want to stick with the night?
Everybody live with that?
Makes sense.
Lisa, you good with staying with
You
the
all right with
night?
that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
And you're going to get us an updated shape there? With 2019?
All right.
Okay.
Draft school district calendar for 2019.
Okay, it should be in one of these books here. We've been working on, I'm not going to take a lot of time with this, we've been working on, it's 4.4 in your blue binders, for a couple of months. This calendar is very closely aligned to the BOCES calendar. Actually, I think they stole our calendar, actually. But it's close, not exactly. It's very close. The state did us a favor by pushing out the end of Regents Week to Friday the 26th, and we had no choice in that matter, but it actually built in 2 more days to work with. So I'm recommending we put Bronny Day back in the calendar. It still gives us 6 snow days instead of 5. It gives us an extra snow day, and it also gives us May 22nd, that if we have to pull yet another day back next year, we have another day to play with. So we have a little more cushion than even we had this year. I've given copies of this to our employee or bargaining units, asking them for feedback. The only feedback that I got from them, which we'll discuss, was a request to backload some of the superintendent's conference days to later in the year. I have to admit, I'm not a big fan of that, because I'd rather do them earlier and get the bang for the buck throughout the year than to wait later in the year and start training people where they're only going to implement stuff for a couple months.
What was their reason to do that?
They'd rather have the break in March instead of. It's in my opinion, it's not a real compelling educational argument.
Yeah.
But I do want, that said, I do want to honor their suggestion and at least review that with the administrative team. I'll do that tomorrow. And you may be seeing this back on your March 12th agenda to adopt it. It may not change at all. It may, I don't know, but that's the only thing that's come on my radar that they've asked us to take a look at, so I will.
Joe, the only thing that struck me, and I don't know if there's an answer to it, is when you look at coming back in winter break and starting school
Yep.
back on a Thursday, I just feel like attendance is gonna be really terrible on those 2 days.
Yep.
It's the way it falls,
You know,
though, right?
Do we
Most of the school districts in the county, most, not all, are going to do that.
Yeah. I mean, do
Come-
we have an extra day?
come
When I
back.
look at last
Come
year's
back on
calendar, it looks like
Thursday.
we have an extra day.
Yeah,
So is that?
so I need 2 extra days in order to be off for 2 weeks at Christmas.
Yes, but I just,
Wednesday of Thanksgiving again comes to play.
Back there.
oh, right, well, if you want to not have Christmas thing. I don't know, I just, it seems like 2 wasted days.
I don't think they're 2 wasted days, I think
They
we'll
should,
start right in,
you
but.
know, it's-
My only comment is the superintendent's conference day on the 1st of November.
Yeah.
You know, the fall is so choppy with the Jewish holidays and,
Yep.
you know, coming back and, whatever, Columbus Day. Is there a chance that that could move to the 8th and then at least it's a 4-day weekend rather than 2 3-day weekends? And
Yeah.
it might be
Yeah,
a
makes
little
lot of
easier
sense.
for people.
There's a chance, I mean, I'm not saying
And-
absolutely no
And the teachers
way.
always complain that, you know,
Yeah.
they can't get any momentum.
Yeah,
So-
we've been playing around with those days, and, I mean, I'll bring that up when I meet with them tomorrow, but that's easy to do, relatively speaking.
I mean, it is nice the March that, you know, you always hear from parents that, you know, there's so many days off, you know, you have a nice 6-week stretch of no days off in February, March. It's, we have snow exception, but,
Yeah.
you know, it is nice to have a block of time and there's no interruptions.
Yeah, but
Says
we,
not the teacher.
but-
Again, and it's not the
no,
students.
but realistically,
I know.
you can bet there's gonna be a snow day in there.
Sure, yeah.
So there's gonna,
Sure.
it's gonna be broken up.
I'm just saying, you know, we do get, every school, or every day, every week there's a day
Yeah.
off, you know, that's a chance to have a nice block.
Yeah, well, I kind of agree with that, but,
So throw sticks in.
you know what, it's what makes the world go round. Mhm.
Indeed.
So it will look much like this. There may be a couple of tweaks between now and then, so thank you for your input, and that's it, I want to keep that deadlist.
All right, so we're gonna move on to committee
Oh,
reports.
excuse me, I'm sorry. One more thing I wanted to bring up under that topic was a request that I start giving some thought to give back snow days from this year.
Oh, yeah.
A little early, I think.
Yeah, that's awfully.
I'm just telling you what the
Optimistic.
request
You're gonna jinx
is.
us.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to jinx us, but realistically, there is barely a snowball's chance in hell that we're going to get between now and the end of March without another day.
You really are trying to jinx yourself.
What?
Maybe snow
All
tomorrow.
right, so
Maybe tomorrow.
I'm not anticipating having 3 days left over, which is what we have now. We have 3 days now. So I'm not anticipating having to give back 3 days.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I just don't think that's gonna happen in the real world, okay? I could be wrong. So I'm thinking if we get to a good way through March and I still have a couple of days, I might suggest that we add a day on to the day after Easter and lengthen that. A lot of the school districts take Easter Monday off. We haven't because we just haven't had enough extra days, but I think that would be a good place to put a day. I still might have an additional day. I could have no days left, that could be the last day, but I also still have, it's in your packets, I have that Friday in May, that first Friday in May, which I can take back without, I think, breaking anybody's heart. And I also have that Friday before Memorial Day, which if I needed another emergency day, I could pull that back. So I think we'd be safe. So just to let you know, my inclination would be, if we have days to give back, we give back one on Easter Monday, and then see what else we have, or not, or we don't have any other days. I mean, you know, it's a crapshoot. Who knows how many?
Yeah, last couple of years,
Should
March
not
and
book
April.
flights yet.
That's why I'm not,
Should not book flights.
that's why I recommend not even
Too late, if you haven't booked by
making
now.
that decision now, because that's exactly what will happen. So, he's on LA time. So that I just want to make sure, I wouldn't be able to say that we did it.
We discussed it.
No.
You never know.
Yeah.
I'm more worried about Thursday. We'll see. Okay, that's all I just wanted to keep the calendar discussion. Okay.
All right, given the hour,
Order.
let's do some quick hop, skips, and jumps through
Yes.
our committee reports, shall we? We'll start with policy.
Policy.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go back and forth between books, guys. This
No,
isn't
is
a
that-
big
Yeah, I'm
one.
sorry about that.
Well, I
Okay.
can tell you right now. What number is it?
Read the document.
4.2.1
There we go.
in the last meeting's book, previous
We
one,
reviewed a lot of policies.
that one.
And
Thank you for your report. We
there you go.
See attached.
It's an excellent report, excellent.
There was nothing of significance.
There you
I
go.
mean, there were, a few title changes, more of just, what we were doing is we reviewed policies that were flagged in the previous year.
Mhm.
So we're just following up on those, and that was it. And then we're going to discuss a mental health policy, and our next meeting is February 28th. It will.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions
Well
on
said.
policy?
No.
Nope, very well.
Okay, so we'll move on to long-range planning. So you've already heard about our Citizens Advisory Committee work, and the fact that we are asking everybody for their input, positive, negative, questions, anything. In the February 4th minutes, it outlines the fact that we were talking about looking at consultants for putting together strategic planning services. In our next meeting, we talked a little bit differently. You'll remember in the beginning, we talked about CDEP and the long-range plan not running in parallel, but finding ways to intersect and combine those plans. So given that, we talked about, in talking to Lloyd Yeager, who was instrumental in both the CDEP plan and the CAC work, if he had any interest in helping us marry these plans and recommendations for a district strategic plan, so that we don't have a million plans that are sitting on a shelf somewhere. So Joe is going to touch base with Lloyd. We talked about the declining enrollment as we discussed in our budget book. Tom showed us our colorful chart, exciting. And also that we're hoping that the Questar BOCES internal audit of admin and business staffing is going to show up some efficiencies, and we'll be able to use that as sort of a touchstone for other things to look at in the district, so.
Okay.
Question? Okay. Moving on to curriculum, which is in your blue binder.
Yes. Okay, so I'm not even sure I can summarize these minutes because the discussion was lengthy, and I simply would say that our administration is doing a really fine job of keeping the committee apprised on developments in the curricular areas, particularly in the high school. You can read about the specific discussions in the minutes. The committee is continuing to discuss the issue of serving the needs of advanced learners. That discussion is going to be ongoing. And one of the issues that is touched upon in the CAC report about the idea of individualized education plans for all students is also a subject that we discussed in the curriculum committee meeting, and I assume that discussion will continue as well. So if there are no questions, turn the floor over to the next victim.
I don't have a question, I just want,
No.
go ahead, Diane.
No.
No,
I do have a question on the minutes about the, I should not figure about
On the, I
Yeah,
can hear
well,
you.
that's what I was wondering. That's
Yeah, I
what
had a question about that.
Yeah.
About what?
Why would we pay for transportation for that, I'm wondering?
How would our kids get there?
Well, like we do the Duchess Bridge program, we don't provide transportation for those kids.
Well,
What
the-
would be the difference?
this is a BOCES program. This BARD program is a BOCES COSA out of the Questar BOCES up in south of Albany. Yeah, this is not, kids take themselves up there like they would take themselves to Dutchess or drive themselves to SUNY Ulster or whatever, in which case we wouldn't pay for their transportation. It's a BOCES COSA. It is not free.
As posted on Facebook.
In spite of what one of our community members said, it is not free to them. It is not free, it is an expense to the school district.
Right.
Approximately $10,000 a year, times 2 years, plus transportation times potentially 2 years. Unfortunately, since we are as far south as we are not going to be able to combine with Red Hook and share the transportation, so all the transportation cost would be on us. We're just too far away,
And
given our schedule and
Pine
their
Plains
schedule.
won't work either?
What's
'Cause
that?
we were talking about Pine Plains as a possible partner for
They're not-
transportation as well.
They're not even in the discussion.
Okay.
They think they're
Okay,
too far east.
okay.
And so is this program, is it like the Duchess program, where they're just taking college courses?
No, they are not. When you go to Dutchess for a bridge program, you're choosing courses from a big book of courses that they're offering. This program, they're offering specific courses that meet specific high school requirements. Because then you take the regents at the end of the year. So
In
the-
addition, right? I mean, you get your Regents credits
Yes.
because you take those
Yes.
exams, but you also take seminar courses that are college
You
credit.
get college credit
credit
as well, yeah.
So it's in conjunction.
But it's more structured than going to doing your senior year at Dutchess, where you go and you've got to take some courses, but you're taking other courses like normal college, college freshman does. This is not exactly that like that.
Is this geared
Right.
toward more advanced students? Like what type of student is this program geared for?
Likely, because they are still taking half a year at the home school. It's kind of like BOCES, right? You stay here in the morning, you go to BOCES in the afternoon. Well, in this case, you take, 4 courses in the morning, then you get on a bus, you ride up to Hudson, you take your 2 courses a semester times 4 semesters, 2 each year. That's where you're getting your credit, your college credit. It's a different model
It's
than,
just with the cost, I was trying to like.
yeah,
It's a
again,
nice program, it's strong.
it's a great program. I don't want to badmouth the program. It's, as we have looked into it, and we've been studying this for months.
Since
We've
last
had numerous meetings about this. You wake those guys up, will you, and tell them? When I got I lost my train of thought, went off the track.
Nice course.
You've been looking at it for a couple.
We have been looking at it for a while. It's not without expense. The transportation, it's just not working. Red Hook, easier. Germantown, real easy. They've been doing this for a year or two because it's a bicycle ride from Germantown pretty much. For us, it's just that much further south. It's just not practical. But I think it would be a more, what was the term you used? Like a more higher achieving student would probably be interested in a program like this. That's the other question is, how many kids might qualify for, what if 20 kids wanted to go?
Right.
20 times 10,000 a year times 2 years?
Right, no, yeah.
I mean, we have no way of knowing how many kids would go. Now, Germantown, they set a limit. They said, year 1, we're only sending 3 kids. We don't care how many kids are in, well, they're a small school too. But we'll pay for 3. Beyond 3, then we'll have to pick and choose and decide who goes and who doesn't come. So we put that on the list of possibilities if it turned out that we had all sorts of money left over below the tax levy cap. But I mean, I don't see us, and I don't see us dropping this program so that we could plug that in. As much as I'd like to, I don't think we have the budget bandwidth to do that.
I think that's right.
That's just my thinking, okay, so. Anyway, so that's all I had to say about it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay,
Okay.
I got a quick one. CDEP, there's no minutes yet, but in your packet is the PowerPoint from the presentation that was made at the CDEP committee meeting by a very, very sharp lady from Duchess Bose's who went through the whole ESSA thing and actually made most people understand it, which is saying something, because it's very, very complicated. The good news is that we're in good standing in all three buildings, in all areas. The twist is that there are additional criteria than just academics. For example, attendance is one of the criteria. College and career readiness, I think, or I think is one of the criteria. Excuse me? Yeah, school climate is. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing that they're part of this, but it makes things a little more complicated. It's not just the scores you get on your math assessments and your reading assessments, okay? It's more complicated. We talked about the desirability of building the metrics required in the ESSA plan into our CDEP plan, like we used to have No Child Left Behind metrics built into that. So they're going to start working on that.
Bless you.
We'll have to keep an eye on some of the subgroups. The subgroups that we're not as strong in are economically disadvantaged children, special education. So those are going to be challenging groups for us to address their challenges so that they achieve on a par with our other students. Just challenges going forward, but we'll meet the challenges, but it's going to be some more work rejiggering the CDEP plan a little bit. So anyway, that's that. The Reader's Digest.
All right. We do have finance minutes from February 4th, but
They're kind of all updated, aren't they?
yeah,
We
we've
covered a
gone
lot.
through the first draft, so we
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
All right.
No objections here.
Excellent. We're moving on to the Duchess Bose's budget presentation.
Okay, this is in your pink book, 4.3 and 4.4. Bose's has reached out to all school districts to ask if we wanted a presentation on the Bose's budget. That's something that those of you who've been around this table for a while have known that I have pushed Bose's to offer it. They didn't used to, now they do. That doesn't necessarily mean we need to accept their invitation, but I tentatively scheduled it for March 12th, but I can easily cancel it if you guys aren't interested. It's really what you want.
I
Just considering that we've, pushed for it for a number of years, I really think we should take them up on it and have
I
them come
agree.
and make a presentation.
Okay, it's just our time, but it's not a problem, and they're already locked in, I just have to confirm with them.
Okay.
So that answers that question, I don't disagree with you, Mark. And then the other 4.4 in the red book, 4.7 in the blue book, is nominations and election of the Bose's board. We would need to know tonight, because we missed the last meeting, and make nominate somebody from Rhinebeck to serve on the Bose's board by March 1st. I'm not sure if anybody has any nominees. If not, it's a moot point. We can move on.
I have nobody. Anybody else?
No.
Okay, that's it for that one.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll move on to good news. Does anybody have good news?
Yeah, it's only 9:30. We're almost through the report. We'll turn the report.
We are. I have two good news
Kitty?
The Hawk Talks, is that on News's?
It is now.
It is at 9:30.
Just like Reba Jigger.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a real one.
I was able to go to the Hawk Talks, the high school
Anxiety
English.
talk? Oh.
That too, that one. These are it's the passion project for the high school
Oh, yes,
seniors.
right,
And there were 4 kids who gave their presentation. They were voted by their peers as the best talks from the class. And they were incredible. They really were wonderful. And those kids worked really hard on those projects.
Excellent.
I totally commend the teachers in supporting them to get these projects going. It's pretty exciting stuff. And the other thing is that I went to the parenting and the age of anxiety thing last week, which was very informative. The Health and Wellness Committee deserves a lot of kudos for bringing this gentleman in. I don't know where they found him, but he was full of lots of information.
Yeah.
Be able to try, but he was full
Yeah.
of lots of really important information, so it was good.
The
We
first
had some
part was-
practical stuff
Oh,
in the second half that I thought was, I wish I had heard when I was
yeah.
a parent.
I wish I-
Yeah, yeah,
To be
a
honest
lot
with
of
I
it,
agree.
a lot of it, a lot of it.
And I think that we should get that out to every new parent who comes in.
Yeah,
You know,
we
it's-
recorded it, so.
I
It's
know.
not gonna be online.
I talked to Dave,
Heard back.
I talked to Dave today, he thought Ed Lack would have it done by the end of this week, so
Great.
we'll put it on as a link on our website.
Online.
On our
through
YouTube.
Our website.
On the okay. On
Yeah.
the website,
We'll
okay.
probably put it on the YouTube channel like we do with
We
the
can,
board.
we can tweet and Facebook it too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
send us
yes,
a
yes.
put a link to the from the Facebook page, put a
Yeah,
link.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
So
yes, that's
were
good,
really
it was good stuff. yeah.
great, very nice. I'm sorry I missed it.
But you'll get to see it.
I know, very
For
exciting.
free?
Yes.
Well, just to let you know, we had health and wellness yesterday, so we discussed it about potentially how do we get this information to the kids?
Oh, yeah,
So they understand what they're going through.
yeah.
You know, do we embed it in curriculum and health or in some way? Because I found it very valuable. I found a better understanding of what my kids were going through, this transition period, which I never knew it until that meeting. I was like, well, now I understand why kids, they shut down. There's a physical reason why it happens. Understand it now and understand that there's a way based on his recommendations about how to address those things. Don't get in an argument at that time. You're gonna get nowhere, period. Wait 10, 15 minutes, wait for everybody calms down, and then let's discuss it.
That's good stuff.
It was good stuff, very good stuff.
All right, any old business?
I do not.
Diane?
Maybe this is old business, I just try to put the information about AP exams in the FYI.
Yeah.
One of our packets, we had someone come to talk about we're charging students for, parents for the APs. I just found it interesting that most districts in the county also do that, so we're not adding more with that.
Right.
One district does that, so.
Yeah, I would, if I can kind of coattail on that comment, the other thing that's happening, I'm not sure if I mentioned it to you or not, but Dutchess Community College has announced to us that they're gonna start charging kids who take a Dutchess course in our school $12 a credit hour for the credits, which in and of itself is not a lot of money, but they picked up the cost in the past. It's been a freebie. So now kids who take those courses are gonna, if they want the credit, they're gonna have to pay 12 times 3 per credit hour. And there was a little poll amongst the superintendents last week or so, and I'm pretty sure every superintendent said, we're not paying for that, the kids will have to pay for it themselves. So we're not some outlier regarding AP payment, nor now paying for these Dutchess courses, just so you're aware, in case you hear any.
Joe, I
Like
was
that.
wondering if, with both of these things, either now when kids are signing up for courses or when their schedules get sent, mailing, maybe that's a place for a letter to say, you know, you sign up for these classes, these are fees that you.
I asked Ed to put that information in the course selection book.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, they should know before they.
So before they even sign up for it,
Well, I
if
just-
they read the darn thing,
Want the parents to know,
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
not that, you know, I'm just wondering if you should go home and that packet to the parents, do just an FYI, that your kids, if they have signed up for APs
Yeah.
or this, these are the fees, because the kids, they don't always communicate.
Yeah.
They certainly don't look at
Yeah.
those fees always.
And maybe it's just a note coming out of guidance, because in August, you know, if parents lose their minds because they're gonna have to pay money, then that means all those schedules are gonna have to be changed if they're pulling their kids out.
Yeah, I don't know the right
So-
place to put it at a time, but, you know, I don't know if it's when your schedule's made, then something you can send home to
Yeah,
just the kids.
but you've
decide
gotta get your
for it,
parents'
or-
signature on these
Well,
things.
you know, I don't, and with all due respect, we also know that unless we actually make a home visit and go to the door at dinner time and tell them, some people won't get it.
Right.
But,
Yeah, no, you're right, you're right.
well, I'm sorry, I just gotta say
No,
it.
you're right.
But that having been said, we will do a much better job of outreach on this than we did on the AP exams this past year.
I wonder, the parents have to sign when the kid's schedule, you have to sign something.
Well,
I've seen it, so maybe that's the place for it.
And they did. But that, good point, yes, we'll do a better job on that this time around. Okay. But I just want to let you know about the Duchess thing, because that's a new
Yeah.
wrinkle now for.
And that was actually covered in curriculum, so
Yeah,
I'm glad
yes,
to have closure
yes, it
on
was.
that,
It
right.
was, yeah. Okay.
All right. Any other old business? We had no public for comment, and we had earlier.
Sure those guys aren't sitting there?
No, they skedaddled.
All right.
Look out tonight.
Any other?
I don't.
I have one other.
Okay.
I wanted to let you guys all know I'm not going to be running for re-election this year.
What?
Yeah, I've started working again, so I can't really devote the kind of time that I have for the last 6 years on this, but it's been a remarkable experience, and I've loved every bit of it.
When do you finish?
The end of this year.
The end of this year?
Yeah, so.
The end of
School
June.
year,
June.
or?
So
June. Yeah.
There-
I'm
Your
done
term
in
is
June.
up then anyways.
Yeah, my term's up.
So
I'm
that-
not stepping down, I'm just not.
Oh, I realize that.
Yeah.
there are going to be 2 open seats, because I'm not going to run.
There will be, yes, well,
There are
there will be
three
three.
open
Right, so who's the third?
You're
Steve.
running
Steve's,
again, yeah?
Steve's term,
Yeah.
your term, and Laura's term.
Okay,
Steve,
and
you're
you're going to
running
run.
again.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I've got a signature I need. I'll pass it around later.
Okay.
But that means we have 2 seats open.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have, you know, a lot of opportunity for people to come forward.
So step up, Rhinebeck community.
We need
Yes.
to.
Serve,
Yes.
we need to serve the board.
Yes, and preferably not at the last minute.
Yeah. What was that?
Not at the last minute, we've had some of those too.
But Laura, you've done a fine job, and
Yes.
I will say you'll be missed.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, shall we move on to our action items?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Okay, would anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda? All right, may I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve consent agenda?
So
Second.
Any discussion? Diane?
I just want to comment that on some of the letters of retirement, it's just really nice to see the reflections of their years here. It's just really nice to see those letters.
Agreed.
Their service has been appreciated. I would also like to call out, again, our thanks to the Rhinebeck PTSO and the Rhinebeck Science Foundation for their support of our incredible programs.
Yeah.
And I would take a moment to, if you haven't seen yet, to let you know that the PTSO is doing the Harlem Wizards again.
Yes, did see that.
So exciting.
Yeah.
Great. Yes, that is great.
It's a great, great
Yep,
event.
yep.
Yes.
All right, 6.2.
No, wait, you have to call the question for a vote.
Okay, sorry.
Well, I already checked that.
The consent agenda, that is unanimous. Steve, put your hand up.
I was in the
Excellent.
world for 5 seconds. I enjoyed it.
What if you wanted to vote against?
May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the following resolution? Whereas the Rhinebeck Central School District is situated within the 103rd Assembly District of the State of New York, and whereas the Rhinebeck Central School District has agreed to participate in the Science Lab Initiative 2, which aims to encourage scientific curiosity and creativity, build student interest in science, and promote science education in elementary schools in the 103rd Legislative Assembly District through the creation of state-of-the-art science labs. And whereas the Science Lab Initiative 2 will allow school districts to acquire equipment toward the creation of such a science lab, and funds can be used for the purchase of science-related equipment. And whereas the Benjamin Center at SUNY New Paltz will coordinate this effort and be the liaison to all school districts. And whereas the Benjamin Center at SUNY New Paltz is responsible for purchasing all equipment related to the Science Lab Initiative 2, and thus SUNY New Paltz maintains ownership over said equipment. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Rhinebeck Central School District understands this arrangement and agrees to participate in the Science Lab Initiative 2.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? We'd like to thank Kevin Cahill and SUNY New Paltz for bringing these opportunities to the district.
Yes, we do.
All those in favor? That's unanimous, that motion
Thank you.
passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the following resolution? Resolved that the Board of Education approve the terms of the release and settlement agreement involving student number 123456, a copy of which shall be incorporated by reference in the minutes of this meeting. And be it further resolved that the superintendent of schools be and hereby is authorized to execute such release and settlement agreement on behalf of the district.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to point out to the board that this is the settlement agreement that our legal counsel discussed with us in executive session, I think the second meeting in January.
All those in favor? That's unanimous, that motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve spring sports coaches for the 2018-19 school year? Track, varsity throwing,
Just read
varsity,
the one, just read the ones.
just the one,
Go to a
okay,
point.
great. Modified track, sprinting, jumping, Jen Ramo, $2,503. Tennis, varsity, Eric Thomas, $2,973. Baseball, varsity assistant, Jeff Cassins, volunteer.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
So we appreciate our volunteers.
Yes, we really do.
Forward, really time.
All those in favor? That's unanimous, that motion
Great.
passes. May I have a motion to move into executive session for discussion of our discussions with our marketing units?
There you go.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? That's unanimous, that
Borrow your
motion
pen.
passes. We are moving into executive.